Lauren Hayes lived in a cramped apartment on the edge of Los Angeles, where the hum of traffic never stopped. At 25, she was no stranger to struggle. Her mom, Nancy Hayes, had a weak heart that kept her in and out of the hospital, racking up bills Lauren could barely keep up with. Her dad, Tom Hayes, drove for Uber late into the night, his old sedan rattling with every mile. Then there was her little sister, Jenna, still in high school, dreaming of college but stuck with hand-me-down textbooks. Lauren took whatever acting gigs she could find, small roles in commercials or background spots in TV shows, just to put food on the table and cover Nancy's meds. Fame wasn't her goal. She just wanted enough cash to breathe a little easier. One sunny Tuesday, her phone buzzed while she was scrubbing dishes. It was an unknown number, but she picked up anyway. A man's voice, smooth and professional, came through. "Miss Hayes, I'm calling about a unique acting job. It's a reality movie, top secret, and we need someone fresh like you. The role's a bride, pays $30,000 up front. Interested?" Lauren nearly dropped the plate in her hand. $30,000? That was more than she'd made in a year. She could pay off the hospital debt, fix Tom's car, maybe even buy Jenna a new backpack. "Yeah, I'm in. What do I do?" she said, her voice shaky with excitement. The man told her to head to a fancy salon in Beverly Hills the next day, wear something simple and be ready to act natural. "The cameras will be hidden," he added. "Just follow the script as it unfolds." Lauren barely slept that night, imagining her big break. She pictured herself on set, cameras rolling, maybe even a director shouting her name. The next morning, she threw on a faded sundress, kissed Nancy goodbye, and took 2 buses across town. Beverly Hills sparkled under the California sun, all palm trees and gleaming storefronts. The salon was a palace of glass and marble, the kind of place she'd only seen in magazines. Inside, stylists swarmed her like she was royalty. They curled her dark hair into soft waves, painted her nails a delicate pink, and slipped her into a wedding gown that felt like a cloud. The fabric shimmered, hugging her frame, and she couldn't help but twirl in front of the mirror. "This must be a high-budget film," she muttered, grinning. A driver in a black suit ushered her into a sleek car, and soon they pulled up to a grand church in downtown LA, its stained glass windows glowing in the afternoon light. Lauren stepped out, clutching the gown's train, her heart racing. This was it, her moment. She walked up the stone steps, expecting to see a film crew, but the church was quiet, filled only with rows of polished pews and a few well-dressed people she assumed were extras. At the altar stood a man in a sharp tuxedo, tall and broad-shouldered, with chestnut hair and a jawline that could cut glass. Grayson Reed, she'd later learn his name, turned to face her, his hazel eyes locking onto hers. Lauren figured he was the lead actor, and she flashed him her best smile. "Hey, I'm Lauren. Ready to nail this scene?" she whispered as she reached his side. Grayson blinked, then nodded slowly. "Good. Let's make it convincing," he replied, his voice low and steady. She took that as her cue to dive in. The priest, an older man with a kind face, stepped forward and began the ceremony. Lauren played along, her voice bright and cheerful as she repeated the vows. "I, Lauren Hayes, take you to be my husband," she said, adding a little wink for flair. Grayson echoed her words, his tone oddly serious, but she chalked it up to method acting. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Grayson leaned in without hesitation, his lips pressed against hers, warm and firm, lingering just a beat too long. Lauren pulled back, laughing softly. "Wow, you're really selling it," she murmured, glancing around for the hidden cameras. Grayson smirked, a flicker of amusement in his eyes, but said nothing. As the small crowd clapped, Lauren felt a rush of adrenaline. She'd nailed it, the scene was perfect. She turned to Grayson, expecting a director to yell cut any second. "So, where's the crew? When do we get notes?" she asked, adjusting her veil. Grayson tilted his head, studying her. "Crew?" he repeated, his brow furrowing. "Yeah, you know, the film people," she said, her smile faltering. A woman in a sleek dress approached, beaming. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Reed. The car's waiting to take you to the hotel." Lauren froze. "Mr. and Mrs. Reed? Hotel?" Her stomach twisted. Wait, what? Is this still part of the shoot? She asked, her voice rising. Grayson grabbed her arm gently, steering her toward the exit. Just go with it for now, he muttered, his expression unreadable. Outside, a black limo idled by the curb. Lauren climbed in, her mind spinning. Okay, this is next-level improv, she told herself, clutching her old canvas bag. Grayson slid in beside her, loosening his tie. You're doing great, he said, almost like he was reassuring her. She laughed nervously. Thanks, but seriously, when do we break character? He didn't answer, just stared out the window as the limo pulled away. Lauren's excitement started to sour into confusion. The church faded behind them, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. No cameras, no director, no script. Just her, this guy, and a wedding that felt way too real. Across town, Grayson Reed had his own reasons for being at that altar. He'd orchestrated the whole thing, a fake wedding to dodge the real one his parents, Richard and Cecilia Reed, had planned with Isabel Vaughn, the heiress they'd picked to secure a business merger. Grayson had hired Lauren through a middleman, thinking she'd play the part of a stand-in bride long enough to fool his family. He'd told the manager to find someone desperate for cash, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions. Lauren fit the bill perfectly, or so he thought. What he didn't know, and what Lauren didn't know, was that the priest wasn't an actor, the marriage license wasn't a prop, and the vows they'd just exchanged were about to turn their lives upside down. As the limo rolled toward the hotel, Lauren leaned back, still grinning like she'd aced an audition. This is wild. They're really going all out with the realism, she said, half to herself. Grayson glanced at her, his jaw tightening. He'd meant to keep this simple, a quick ruse to buy time, but the way she'd walked down that aisle, all confidence and charm, had thrown him off. For a moment, he'd forgotten it was supposed to be fake, and now, with her sitting beside him, chattering about hidden cameras, he couldn't help but wonder how long he could keep up the lie before the truth crashed down on them both. The limo glided through the streets of Los Angeles, its tinted windows shielding Lauren Hayes and Grayson Reed from the bustling city outside. Lauren sat on the plush leather seat, still buzzing from the church scene. She adjusted her wedding gown, the fabric rustling as she shifted. Her old canvas bag rested on her lap, a stark contrast to the luxury around her. She glanced at Grayson, who stared out the window, his fingers tapping restlessly on his knee. So, how long's this shoot gonna take? She asked, breaking the silence. I mean, I've got laundry piling up back home. Grayson turned to her, his hazel eyes narrowing slightly. Shoot? He said, his voice clipped. Yeah, the reality movie, Lauren replied, tilting her head. When do we wrap for the day? He hesitated, then forced a smile. Soon. Just keep up the act until we're done. Lauren nodded, assuming he meant the next scene. She leaned back, imagining how she'd spend the $30,000. Maybe a new mattress for Nancy or a weekend off for Tom? The limo slowed as it pulled up to a towering hotel, its glass facade reflecting the golden sunset. A doorman in a crisp uniform opened the door, bowing slightly. Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Reed, he said, gesturing them inside. Lauren giggled, nudging Grayson. They're really committed to this. Mrs. Reed, nice touch. Grayson didn't laugh. He stepped out, offering her his hand. She took it, her sneakers squeaking on the marble lobby floor as they entered. The place screamed money, chandeliers dripping crystals, staff scurrying with polite smiles. Lauren felt like she'd walked onto a Hollywood set, and she loved it. They rode the elevator to the penthouse suite, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Lauren dropped her bag on a velvet couch, spinning around to take it all in. This is insane, she said, running her fingers over a marble countertop. They must have blown the budget on this location. Grayson loosened his tie, watching her with an unreadable expression. Glad you approve, he muttered, pouring himself a glass of water from a crystal pitcher. Lauren plopped onto the couch, kicking off her shoes. So, what's next? Do we wait for the crew? I'm starving. Think they've got craft services? Grayson set his glass down harder than necessary, the clink echoing in the quiet room. No crew, he said, his tone flat. Just us. Lauren frowned, sitting up straighter. What do you mean, no crew? Where's the director, the cameras? She scanned the room, expecting to spot a hidden lens. Grayson rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding her gaze. Look, Lauren, there's no film. This isn't what you think. Her stomach dropped. She stood, clutching her bag like a lifeline. Wait, what? You're kidding, right? She said, her voice rising. Grayson sighed, stepping closer. I hired you to play a part. My family's been pushing me to marry Isabel Vaughn, some heiress they picked for a business deal. I needed a fake bride to get them off my back. That's you. Lauren's jaw fell open. She stared at him, processing his words. A fake bride? So this whole thing, the church, the vows, it's just a scam? She asked, her hands balling into fists. Grayson nodded, his face tight. Exactly. I paid someone to find a girl who'd go along with it. $30,000, no questions asked. You did great back there. Lauren laughed, but it was sharp, bitter. Great? I thought I was auditioning for a movie, not playing house with some rich guy. You lied to me. Grayson held up his hands, trying to calm her. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you the whole story. It's a few days, tops. Fool my parents, then you're free. Free? Lauren snapped, pacing the room. I'm not your prop, Grayson. I've got a family to feed, not time to waste on your little game. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door, her sneakers thudding against the hardwood. Grayson moved fast, blocking her path. Wait, hear me out, he said, his voice urgent. I'll make it worth it. $5 million. Stay a few days, act like my wife, and you'll never have to worry about money again. Lauren froze, her hand on the doorknob. $5 million. That was life-changing. She could move her family out of that crumbling apartment, get Nancy the best doctors, send Jenna to college, but the thought of being bought made her skin crawl. She turned to face him, her brown eyes blazing. You think you can just throw cash at me and I'll roll over? I'm not for sale, she said, shoving past him. Grayson grabbed her arm, pulling her back. You already said I do in front of witnesses. My family thinks we're married. If you walk out now, they'll know it's fake and I'm screwed. Lauren yanked her arm free, glaring at him. That's your problem, not mine. I didn't sign up for this. She darted toward the hallway, spotting a glowing exit sign. The door led to a stairwell, her escape route. She pushed it open, heart pounding, but Grayson was right behind her. He caught her wrist, just as she reached the first step, spinning her around. Lauren, stop, you can't leave yet, he said, his grip firm but not rough. She struggled, her sneakers slipping on the concrete. Let me go, you creep, she shouted, swinging her bag at him. It hit his chest with a dull thud and he winced, but didn't budge. Listen to me, he said, his voice low and steady. I get it. You're mad. You should be. But we're in this together now. My parents are watching every move. If you bail, they'll cut me off and this whole thing collapses. Lauren glared up at him, breathing hard. Together? You dragged me into this mess without asking. Grayson let go of her wrist, stepping back. I know I screwed up, he said, running a hand through his hair. I thought you'd just play along and walk away happy with the cash. I didn't expect you to be... You. Lauren crossed her arms, her anger simmering. What's that supposed to mean? She asked, narrowing her eyes. Grayson hesitated, then shrugged. You're not some pushover. You've got fire. I respect that, she snorted, turning away. Save the flattery. I'm not staying. But as she took another step toward the stairs, Grayson's voice stopped her cold. What about your family? That 30,000's already yours. 5 million more could fix everything. Think about it. Lauren paused, her hand on the railing. She hated that he was right. The money could change their lives. She thought of Nancy coughing through the night, Tom's tired eyes, Jenna's worn-out shoes. But staying meant giving up control, letting this stranger dictate her next move. She turned back, her face a mix of defiance and doubt. If I stay, it's on my terms, she said, pointing a finger at him. No funny business. I'm not your real wife. Grayson nodded quickly. Deal. Just act the part in public. That's all I need. They walked back to the suite in tense silence, Lauren clutching her bag like a shield. She dropped onto the couch, kicking her shoes off again. "Fine, a few days, but you owe me big time," she said, glaring at him. Grayson sank into an armchair, rubbing his temples. "Trust me, I know," he muttered. He poured her a glass of water and slid it across the coffee table. She took it, sipping reluctantly, her mind racing. She still thought this was just a rich guy's elaborate lie, a fake marriage to trick his family. Grayson thought the same, a temporary fix to his problems. Neither of them knew the real bomb waiting to drop, that the priest back at the church had filed their marriage license with the county clerk. The vows weren't just for show. They were legal, binding, and about to turn this charade into a reality neither saw coming. Lauren Hayes slumped on the penthouse couch, her sneakers tossed aside, the wedding gown bunched around her legs. The Los Angeles skyline glittered through the windows, but she barely noticed. Her old canvas bag sat beside her, a stubborn reminder of the life she'd left behind for this bizarre deal with Grayson Reed. He'd convinced her to stay, dangling $5 million like a carrot, and she'd agreed, grudgingly, for her family's sake. $30,000 was already hers, wired to her account that morning, but the bigger payout meant playing his wife in public. She sipped her water, glaring at him across the room. Grayson paced near the bar, his tuxedo jacket off, sleeves rolled up. "So, what's the plan now?" she asked, her voice edged with suspicion. He stopped, turning to her. "We head to Miami tomorrow. My family's there. You just smile, hold my hand, and sell it." Lauren rolled her eyes. "Sell it? Right. Like I'm some trophy wife." Grayson smirked, leaning against the counter. "You're doing it for the money, not me. Think of it as a job." She crossed her arms, muttering, "Some job." But she couldn't argue with the logic. $5 million could fix everything. Nancy's hospital bills, Tom's endless shifts, Jenna's future. She'd grit her teeth and get through it. The next morning, Grayson's private jet whisked them to Miami, the humid air hitting her as they stepped onto the tarmac. A driver took them to a sprawling beachfront villa, all white walls and glass, surrounded by palm trees. Lauren lugged her bag inside, ignoring the designer clothes Grayson had ordered for her. "I'm not wearing that," she said, pointing at a pile of silk dresses. "This is me." She patted her faded jeans. Grayson shrugged. "Suit yourself. Just don't blow our cover." The villa buzzed with activity, staff setting up for a family party by the pool. Grayson's parents, Richard and Cecilia Reed, were due any minute, along with a gaggle of relatives. Lauren adjusted her ponytail, steeling herself. "How long do I have to fake this?" she whispered as they stepped outside. The pool sparkled under the sun, lounge chairs lined up, a bar stocked with colorful drinks. Grayson handed her a lemonade. "A couple days. Long enough to convince them I'm off the market." She took the glass, sipping it skeptically. "And Isabel? What if she shows up?" Grayson's jaw tightened. "She won't. She bailed on me months ago. That's why I needed you." Lauren raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like a mess I didn't ask for." He didn't respond, just scanned the arriving guests. Among them was Tucker Hayes, Grayson's cousin, strutting in with a cocky grin. Tall and tan, he clapped Grayson on the back. "Well, well, the runaway groom finally tied the knot," he said, eyeing Lauren. "Who's this?" Grayson forced a smile. "My wife, Lauren. Lauren, meet Tucker." She stuck out her hand, playing along. "Nice to meet you," she said, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. Tucker smirked, shaking her hand a little too long. "Didn't think you'd settle down, Gray. Still scared of the water, though." Grayson stiffened, but before he could reply, Tucker grabbed a beach ball. "Let's have some fun. You in, Lauren?" She glanced at Grayson, who nodded reluctantly. "Sure," she said, figuring it was part of the act. Tucker led them to the pool, tossing the ball between guests. The game turned rowdy fast, laughter echoing as people splashed around. Tucker lobbed the ball at Lauren, harder than necessary. She caught it, but he charged over, grinning. "Let's see if Gray's still got it," he said, pulling her toward the deep end. "Hey, easy," she protested, But Tucker yanked her into a playful tussle. Her foot slipped on the wet tiles, and she tumbled into the water with a yelp. The deep end swallowed her, cold and dark, her jeans dragging her down. She flailed, panic rising as she struggled to surface. Above, Grayson's face went pale. He'd frozen, memories of his car crash flooding back the night his SUV flipped into a flooded ditch, leaving him blind for years. But then he saw Lauren's arms thrashing, her head bobbing under. Something snapped. He dove in, slicing through the water, his old fear shoved aside. He reached her in seconds, hooking an arm around her waist and pulling her up. She coughed, clinging to him as he swam them to the edge. Guests gasped, rushing over. "You okay?" Grayson asked, his voice rough, brushing wet hair from her face. Lauren nodded, spitting water. "Yeah, thanks," she managed, her heart still racing. Tucker laughed from the deck. "Guess you're not a total coward anymore," he called, tossing Grayson a towel. Grayson ignored him, helping Lauren out. She sat on a chair, shivering, wrapping the towel around her shoulders. The party quieted down, the sun dipping low. Grayson sat beside her, handing her a dry shirt from his bag. "You didn't have to do that," she said, pulling it on. "I wasn't going to let you drown," he replied, his tone softer than before. Lauren studied him, noticing the tension in his shoulders. "Tucker said you're scared of water." "What's that about?" she asked, curious despite herself. Grayson stared at the pool, his voice low. "Car accident years ago. Flipped into a ditch during a storm, water everywhere. Couldn't see a thing after that. Not till I got surgery last year. Hated pools ever since," she frowned, piecing it together. "So why'd you jump in?" He met her eyes, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Couldn't let my fake wife sink." Lauren chuckled, the first real laugh she'd given him. "Guess you're not all bad," she said, sipping a fresh lemonade someone brought over. The moment lingered, a crack in the wall between them. Grayson leaned back, his guard slipping. "You remind me of someone," he said, almost to himself. "Who?" she asked, tilting her head. He hesitated, then pulled a folded handkerchief from his pocket, worn but clean, with Lauren Hayes stitched in faded thread. 5 years ago, LAX. I was blind, lost, freaking out. Some girl gave me this. A sandwich, too. Said I'd be okay." "That was you." Lauren's eyes widened. She remembered that day. A gig in Dubai she'd missed, stuck at the airport. A scrawny guy with dark glasses crying by the gate. She'd felt bad, handed him her stuff. "No way," she said, taking the handkerchief. "You kept it?" Grayson nodded. "Only thing that got me through that day." She stared at him, a strange warmth creeping in. Maybe he wasn't just a rich jerk. Before she could say more, his phone rang. He answered, his face darkening. "Mom, what do you mean, filed?" Lauren watched, confused as he stood, pacing. "The marriage license? That was a prop," he said, his voice rising. He hung up, turning to her, eyes wide. "We've got a problem." "What problem?" Lauren asked, standing too. Grayson ran a hand through his damp hair. "My mom just checked with the county clerk. The priest filed our marriage license. It's real, Lauren. We're actually married." Her jaw dropped, the lemonade slipping from her hand and shattering on the tiles. "Real? This was supposed to be fake!" she shouted, her voice bouncing off the villa walls. Grayson winced, stepping closer. "I don't know how this happened. I told them to keep it off the books." Lauren backed away, her towel falling. "You don't know. You set this up. I'm not your wife, Grayson. Not for real." She stormed toward the house, her wet jeans squishing with every step. Grayson followed, grabbing her arm. "Wait, we'll fix this. It's a mistake," he said, desperation creeping in. Lauren spun around, shoving him back. "A mistake? I trusted you to keep this simple, and now I'm legally stuck with you? No way." She yanked free, her mind racing. 5 million didn't matter anymore. This wasn't a job, it was a trap. She needed out, fast. Grayson stood there, watching her go, his plan unraveling. He'd meant to fake it all, dodge Isabel, appease his parents. But the priest had other ideas, and now the truth was out, at least part of it. What neither of them knew yet was the bigger twist waiting, the one that would flip this mess upside down again. Lauren Hayes stormed into the Miami villa, her wet jeans leaving a trail across the hardwood floor. The shattered glass of lemonade lay forgotten by the pool, a mess that matched the chaos in her head. She'd just learned the wedding wasn't fake, that the priest had filed their marriage license, turning Grayson Reed's little scheme into a legal nightmare. Her chest heaved as she grabbed her canvas bag from the couch, shoving her damp sneakers inside. $30,000 had lured her into this, and $5 million had kept her here. But no amount of money could fix the fact that she was now Mrs. Grayson Reed, for real. She didn't care about his excuses. This wasn't what she'd signed up for. Grayson burst through the glass doors after her, his shirt still clinging from the pool. "Lauren, wait, we can undo this," he called, his voice tight with panic. She spun around, her brown eyes flashing. "Undo it? You said it was fake. You said I'd just smile for a few days and go home. Now I'm your wife? I'm out of here." She slung her bag over her shoulder, heading for the front door. Grayson blocked her path, hands raised. "I didn't plan this. The priest messed up. I'll call my lawyer, get an annulment. Just don't leave yet." Lauren shoved past him, her voice shaking. "You call whoever you want. I'm not sticking around to find out." She yanked the door open and bolted into the humid night, the villa's lights fading behind her. She didn't stop until she reached a gas station a mile down the road, her breath ragged. With the $30,000 already in her account, she bought a bus ticket to Chicago online, her fingers trembling on her cracked phone screen. She needed her family, her real life, not this billionaire's game. The bus rolled in at midnight, and she climbed aboard, sinking into a worn seat. As Miami shrank in the distance, she muttered to herself, "I'd rather scrub floors than be his pawn." The ride took 2 days, a blur of highways and rest stops, but when she stepped off in Chicago, the familiar grit of her neighborhood felt like a lifeline. Lauren trudged up the rickety stairs to her family's apartment, the smell of exhaust and fried food thick in the air. Jenna flung the door open before she could knock, her teenage face lighting up. "Sis, you're back! Did you get famous?" she asked, bouncing on her toes. Lauren forced a smile, dropping her bag. "Not exactly. Long story." Inside, Nancy sat on the sagging couch, a blanket over her knees, while Tom flipped through a car magazine at the kitchen table. "You look like hell," he said, peering over his glasses. Lauren sank beside Nancy, exhaustion hitting her. "Feels like it, too. I just need to crash." Jenna plopped down, grinning. "Spill it. What's the 30 grand for? Some big movie?" Lauren shook her head. "Later, Jen. I'm beat." For the next few days, she slipped back into her old routine, taking odd jobs, washing dishes, running errands. She told herself she'd escaped, that Grayson and his world were behind her. But at night she'd catch herself replaying Miami, the way he'd jumped into that pool, his voice when he'd said her name. She shoved it down, focusing on Nancy's meds and Jenna's chatter. Back in LA, Grayson wasn't letting go so easily. He'd flown home after Lauren vanished, pacing his sleek office, phone in hand. His parents, Richard and Cecilia, sat across from him, their faces stern. "You're telling us this marriage is real?" Richard asked, his voice cold. Grayson nodded, tossing the filed license on the desk. "Yeah, but it wasn't supposed to be. I hired her to fake it, dodge Isabel. Now she's gone." Cecilia frowned, smoothing her silk scarf. "And you let her run off? What a mess!" Grayson clenched his fists. "I didn't let her. She bolted when she found out. I need to fix this." Before they could argue, the door opened, and Isabel Vaughn stepped in, her blonde hair pulled into a tight bun. She looked calm, almost amused. "Heard you lost your bride," she said, crossing her arms. Grayson glared at her. "Not funny, Isabel. You ditched me first, left me to deal with this." She raised an eyebrow, sitting down. "I didn't ditch you. I saved you. And her." He stared, confused. "What are you talking about?" Isabel leaned forward, her voice steady. "I knew you didn't want me, Grayson. That merger marriage was your parents' idea, not yours. So I made sure you'd get out of it for good. I hired that priest, the real one. I told him to file the license after you said I do. It was my gift to you." Grayson's jaw dropped, the room silent. "You what?" he said, standing so fast his chair scraped the floor. Isabel smiled faintly. "You're welcome. I saw how you kept that handkerchief, the one from that girl at LAX, 5 years, and you still had it. I figured, whoever she was, she meant more to you than I ever would." Richard slammed a hand on the desk. "This is absurd. You've ruined everything." Isabel shrugged. "Or I fixed it. He's married now, legally. You can't force me on him anymore." Grayson sank back into his chair, head spinning. Isabel had turned his fake wedding into a real one, not by accident, but on purpose. And Lauren, the girl he'd dragged into this, was the same one who'd given him that handkerchief 5 years ago, the one he'd never forgotten. He rubbed his face, a mix of shock and clarity washing over him. "I need to find her," he said, more to himself than them. Isabel nodded. "I can help. Where'd she go?" Grayson tracked Lauren to Chicago within a day, using the bank transfer for the $30,000 to trace her. He didn't want to scare her off again, so he called Jenna, her sister, whose number he'd gotten from a mutual contact in LA. "Hey, Jenna, it's Grayson. Don't tell Lauren, but I need your help," he said, keeping his voice casual. Jenna squealed on the other end. "The rich guy? Oh my God, are you her boyfriend?" He winced. "Something like that. Can you get her to the park near your place tomorrow? I just want to talk." Jenna giggled. "Deal, but you better bring something good." The next afternoon, Lauren walked with Jenna to the park, thinking it was just a sister hangout. She wore her usual jeans and hoodie, hands stuffed in her pockets. Jenna stopped by a bench, grinning too wide. "What's with you?" Lauren asked, squinting. Before Jenna could answer, Grayson stepped out from behind a tree, hands in his coat pockets, looking nervous but determined. Lauren froze, her stomach flipping. "You've got to be kidding me," she said, turning to bolt. Jenna grabbed her arm. "Wait, hear him out. He's cute." Lauren glared at her sister, then at Grayson. "What do you want?" "I'm done with your games." Grayson stepped closer, his voice soft. "No games. I messed up, Lauren, big time. I tricked you into that wedding, thinking I could control it, but it's real, and I didn't know the half of it until now." She crossed her arms, skeptical. "What half?" He took a breath, meeting her eyes. "Isabel set it up. She hired the priest, made sure it was legal. She knew I didn't want her. Knew I'd kept your handkerchief all these years. She did it to free me, and I didn't see it until you were gone." Lauren blinked, processing. "So this is her fault, and you're here to what, drag me back?" He shook his head, dropping to one knee, not caring about the dirt. "No. I'm here to say I'm sorry. I planned a fake wedding, but I fell for you for real. That day by the pool, the way you laughed, the way you didn't back down, I couldn't shake it. I don't want an annulment. I want you, if you'll have me." Lauren's breath caught, her anger faltering. She remembered Miami, too, his arms pulling her from the water, his quiet confession about the airport. "You're insane," she said, but her voice wavered. Grayson stood, stepping closer. "Maybe, but I'm not letting you go without a fight." Jenna squeaked, clapping her hands. "Say yes, sis." Lauren shot her a look, then turned back to Grayson. "I ran because I was scared. This whole thing, it's too much, but yeah, I missed you too," she admitted, her cheeks flushing. He grinned, pulling her into a hug. She stiffened, then relaxed, her arms wrapping around him. "You're still a jerk," she muttered into his chest. "I know," he said, laughing. They pulled back, and he kissed her, slow and sure under the Chicago sky. A few days later, they flew back to Miami hand in hand, ready to start a real honeymoon, the twist of fate finally sinking in. Lauren Hayes stood beside Grayson Reed on the tarmac in Miami, the salty breeze tugging at her hair. They'd just flown back from Chicago, her hands still warm from his grip during the flight. She wore her usual jeans and hoodie, her old canvas bag slung over her shoulder, but something felt different. The weight of the past week, the fake wedding turned real, the pool rescue, the wild twists, all of it settled into a quiet certainty as she looked at him. Grayson, in his tailored coat, grinned down at her, his hazel eyes bright. "Ready to start over?" he asked, squeezing her hand. She smirked, nudging him. Only if you stop being such a jerk, he laughed, pulling her toward the waiting car. No promises. They drove to the villa, the same one where she'd nearly drowned, where the first crack in their facade had formed. This time, it wasn't about fooling anyone. It was theirs, a fresh start after the chaos. But first, they had loose ends to tie up. Grayson's parents, Richard and Cecilia Reed, had demanded a meeting back in LA, and Lauren knew it wouldn't be easy. A few days later, they flew west, stepping into the Reed family mansion, a sprawling estate in the Hollywood Hills. Marble floors stretched endlessly, walls lined with art Lauren couldn't name. She felt out of place, her sneakers scuffing the polish, but Grayson kept her close, his arm around her shoulders. Richard sat in a leather armchair, his silver hair gleaming under the chandelier, while Cecilia perched on a sofa, her silk dress pristine. "So this is the girl," Richard said, his voice gruff, eyeing Lauren like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Cecilia tilted her head, her lips pursed. "We expected Isabel, Grayson. Not some stranger you dragged into our lives." Lauren bristled, opening her mouth to snap back, but Grayson beat her to it. "She's not a stranger," he said, his tone firm. "She's my wife. Legal and real. Isabel's out, and Lauren's the one I chose." Richard's eyes narrowed. "Chose? You hired her to dodge your responsibilities. Now you're telling us it's love?" Lauren stepped forward, her hands on her hips. "Look, I didn't ask for this either. I thought I was in a movie, not a marriage. But your son's stubborn and I'm here now. Deal with it." Cecilia raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement crossing her face. "You've got spine," she said almost approvingly. Grayson squeezed Lauren's shoulder, grinning. "Told you she's not a pushover." Richard leaned back, crossing his arms. "And what about the business? The Vaughn merger?" Grayson shook his head. "We'll find another way. I'm not trading my life for a contract." After a long pause, Cecilia sighed. "Fine, but you're explaining this to the board." Richard grunted, waving them off. "Get out of my sight. We'll see if she lasts." Lauren exhaled as they left the room, her knees shaky. "That went better than I thought," she muttered. Grayson chuckled, kissing her forehead. "They'll come around. You won them over." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, right." But deep down she felt a spark of pride. She'd stood her ground and they hadn't chased her off. Next stop was Chicago, a trip Grayson insisted on. "If we're doing this right, I need to meet your family," he said on the plane, his hand resting on hers. Lauren groaned. "You don't know what you're in for." He grinned. "I'll survive." She wasn't so sure. The Chicago air hit them cold and sharp as they climbed the stairs to her family's apartment. Lauren knocked, and Jenna yanked the door open, squealing. "You're back, and with him." She hugged Lauren, then sized up Grayson. "You're taller in person." Grayson smiled, offering his hand. "Good to meet you, Jenna." Before he could say more, Tom appeared, a frying pan in one hand, his apron stained with grease. "So you're the guy who snatched my daughter," he said, brandishing the pan like a weapon. Lauren groaned, stepping between them. "Dad, put that down. He's not the enemy." Tom lowered it, grinning, "Just testing him. Come in, kid." Nancy shuffled out, her blanket trailing, and smiled weakly. "You must be Grayson. Lauren's told us nothing," she said, her voice teasing. Lauren blushed. "Mom?" Grayson bent down, kissing Nancy's cheek. "Happy to meet you, Mrs. Hayes. I'll fill you in." They crowded into the tiny living room, Grayson squeezing onto the couch between Lauren and Jenna. Tom plopped into a chair, still holding the pan. "All right, rich boy, what's the deal? You knock her up and run off, or what?" he asked, half serious. Lauren buried her face in her hands. "Dad, stop." Grayson laughed, unfazed. "No running here. I'm sticking around. Married her by accident, but I'd do it again on purpose." Jenna clapped her hands. "That's so romantic. Tell us everything." Lauren shot her a look. "Don't encourage him." But Grayson launched into the story. The fake wedding, the pool, Isabel's twist. Tom chuckled, shaking his head. "Sounds like a soap opera. You sure you're not filming this?" Nancy reached for Lauren's hand, squeezing it. "He's a keeper, hun, I can tell." Lauren softened, glancing at Grayson. "Maybe. she said, her voice quiet. The room filled with laughter as Tom waved the pan again. "Break her heart, and this pan's got your name on it," he warned, winking. Grayson nodded solemnly. "Noted." They stayed in Chicago for a week, Grayson folding into the Hayes family like he'd always belonged. He helped Tom fix the sink, played cards with Jenna, sat with Nancy through her coughing fits. Lauren watched him, her walls crumbling. One night they stood on the cramped balcony, the city lights flickering below. "You're good with them," she said, leaning against the railing. Grayson wrapped an arm around her. "They're good people. Like you," she smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Guess I'm stuck with you now." He kissed her hair. "Guess so." Back in LA, their life took shape. Grayson bought a house, not a mansion. Something cozy with a yard. Lauren insisted on keeping her old bag, a piece of her past she wouldn't trade. One evening they sat on their porch, the sun dipping low. Grayson pulled out the handkerchief, the one she'd given him at LAX 5 years ago. "Still can't believe it was you," he said, tracing the faded stitching of her name. Lauren took it, her fingers brushing his. "I remember that day. You were a mess, crying by the gate." He frowned. "I wasn't crying, dust in my eyes." She laughed, nudging him. "Sure, tough guy." He grinned, then grew serious. "That crash messed me up. Car flipped into a ditch, water pouring in, went blind for years after, scared me off pools, everything. Until you." Lauren's hand found his, her voice soft. "What happened?" He sighed, staring at the horizon. "Storm hit while I was driving, lost control, woke up underwater. Doc said it was trauma to my head. Surgery fixed my eyes, but not the fear. Then you fell in that pool, and I couldn't just stand there." She squeezed his hand. "You're braver than you think." He turned to her, eyes warm. "You make me that way." She leaned in, kissing him, slow and deep, the handkerchief pressed between them. "We're a weird pair," she said, pulling back. "Fake wedding, real marriage, all because of this thing?" He chuckled. "Fate's got a sense of humor." Months later, their world grew fuller. Lauren sat on the bathroom floor one morning, a pregnancy test in hand, 2 lines staring back at her. She found Grayson in the kitchen, flipping pancakes. "Hey," she said, holding up the stick. "Guess we're adding one more." His spatula clattered to the counter, his face splitting into a grin. "For real?" She nodded, and he scooped her up, spinning her around until she laughed. "Best accident yet," he said, kissing her again. A year later, they stood in that same kitchen, a baby girl gurgling in a high chair, her tiny hands smeared with mashed peas. Grayson fed her a spoonful, dodging a messy swipe. Lauren leaned against the counter, watching them. "She's got your eyes," she said, smiling. "And your temper," he shot back, wiping green goo off his shirt. They'd built something real, piece by piece, from a lie that turned true. Grayson learned to love the chaos of her family, the simplicity she clung to. Lauren found strength in his steady presence, a partner she hadn't expected. One night, they sat on the porch again, the baby asleep upstairs. Grayson draped an arm around her, the city humming below. "You ever think about how we got here?" he asked. Lauren nodded, her head on his chest. "All the time. A fake plan, a real priest, Isabel's crazy move, should have been a disaster." He smiled, pulling her closer. "Instead, it's us. You turned my world upside down, and I'd do it all again." She looked up, her eyes soft. "Some plans fail so better ones can happen. Guess that's us." They sat there, wrapped in each other, proof that sometimes fate takes the wheel when you least expect it, steering you exactly where you're meant to be. And that's the wild ride of Lauren Hayes and Grayson Reed, a love story that started with a fake wedding and ended up as real as it gets. From a mix-up in a Los Angeles church to a poolside rescue in Miami, all the way to a Chicago park where they found their way back to each other, this tale had more twists than a roller coaster. Who could have guessed that a $30,000 gig would turn into a lifetime with a billionaire? Or that Isabel Vaughn, the woman Grayson was supposed to marry, would flip the script and make it all legit? It's the kind of story that proves love doesn't follow a plan. It just happens when you least expect it. Think about it for a second. Lauren walked into that salon in Beverly Hills dreaming of a quick paycheck to help her family. Nancy with her heart troubles, Tom with his beat-up Uber car, and Jenna with her school books. Grayson just wanted to dodge a marriage he didn't sign up for, a way to keep Richard and Cecilia off his back. But fate had other ideas, stitching them together with a handkerchief from 5 years ago and a priest who didn't play by the rules. They fought, they ran, they fell, and somehow they landed right where they belonged, with a little girl who's got her dad's eyes and her mom's fire. What's your favorite part? Was it the moment Lauren realized she wasn't on a movie set, stomping out of that penthouse with her sneakers squeaking? Or maybe when Grayson dove into the pool, shaking off years of fear to pull her out? How about Isabel dropping the bombshell that she'd rigged the whole thing, turning a fake I do into a real forever? And let's not forget Tom waving that frying pan in Chicago, ready to defend his daughter with a grin. This story's packed with moments that stick with you, the kind you want to tell your friends about over coffee or text in all caps late at night. So what do you think? Drop a comment below and let me know which scene had you hooked. Did you gasp when the marriage license turned out to be real? Or maybe you cheered when Lauren and Grayson kissed in that park, finally on the same page? Your thoughts mean everything, so don't hold back. If you loved this journey, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. There's more where this came from, stories that'll make you laugh, cry, and believe in the wild ways love shows up. Next week, we've got another one lined up. Picture this, a romance that doesn't just beat the odds, it takes on time itself. Can love survive when the clock's against it? You won't want to miss it. Stick around, share this video with anyone who needs a good tale, and let's keep the conversation going. Lauren and Grayson found their happy ending through a mess of mistakes and miracles. And maybe that's the real magic here. Life's messy, love's messier, but sometimes it all works out just right. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.
The gardener was fired for theft and the millionaire saw his pendant. The same one he gave his son before he disappeared 26 years ago. The morning sun cast long shadows across Highland Estate, as Edward Miller carefully snipped a wilting leaf from his prized roses. At 67, his hands weren't as steady as they once were, but they still moved with practiced precision among the thorns. The garden had been his sanctuary since Catherine's death, and even more so since Michael vanished 26 years ago. "These bourbon roses are looking strong this season," he murmured to himself, gently touching a crimson bloom. Michael would have loved to see them. From the house, Jessica Harper watched through the kitchen window, her thin lips pressed into a line of disapproval. 8 years as Catherine's nurse, and 15 more as Edward's right hand had given her complete control over Highland Estate. She wiped her hands on her apron and called out the open window. "Edward, your heart medication. You know, doctor. Reynolds insists you take it with breakfast." Edward straightened, wincing as his back protested. "Coming, Jess." As he walked toward the house, a movement near the gardener's cottage caught his attention. Cody emerged, tools in hand, his young face serious as always. For 8 months, the boy had tended the grounds with an almost reverent dedication. There was something about him that Edward couldn't quite place, something familiar that tugged at the edges of his memory. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," Cody called, keeping a respectful distance. "Morning, boy. The east section needs attention. Betty always said those roses were the thirstiest." At the mention of Betty, a shadow crossed Cody's face. "Yes, sir. I remember." Jessica appeared at Edward's side, small white pills in her outstretched palm. "Edward, inside. It's getting warm, and you know what the doctor said about overexertion." As Edward reluctantly followed Jessica inside, Cody's gaze lingered on them, something unreadable in his expression. Nicole Miller adjusted her sunglasses as she steered the rental car up the winding driveway toward Highland Estate. Beside her, her mother Amanda stared out the window, her once vibrant face now gaunt and pale. "I can't believe it's been 15 years, Amanda whispered. "Nothing's changed." Nicole squeezed her mother's hand. "You didn't have to come, Mom. We could have waited until you felt stronger." Amanda shook her head. "There's no time for waiting anymore, Nikki." A coughing fit doubled her over, and Nicole waited anxiously for it to pass. At 27, Nicole had just completed her forensic investigator training. when her mother's mysterious illness accelerated. The decision to return to Highland Estate had been Amanda's, insistent and urgent despite her declining health. As they rounded the final curve, the mansion came into view, grand, imposing, and eerily unchanged. Nicole parked in front of the stone steps and helped her mother from the car. The front door opened before they reached it. Jessica Harper stood in the doorway, her surprise quickly masked by a welcoming smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Amanda, what an unexpected pleasure. Edward didn't mention you were coming." "He doesn't know," Amanda replied, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "It was a last-minute decision." Jessica's gaze shifted to Nicole, assessing. "And this must be little Nicole, how you've grown." Nicole extended her hand. "Ms. Harper, it's been a long time." "Indeed it has." Jessica's grip was cool and firm. "Edward is resting, his heart, But come in. I'll prepare the East Wing rooms." As they entered the grand foyer, Nicole caught her breath. The memories came rushing back. Running down these halls as a child, playing hide-and-seek with Michael during family gatherings before he disappeared, before everything changed. "I'll take Mom upstairs," Nicole said. "She needs to rest." Jessica's smile tightened. "Of course. I'll bring up some tea. Edward will be so surprised." As Nicole helped Amanda up the sweeping staircase, she felt Jessica's eyes boring into her back. Edward was dozing in his study when a knock at the door roused him. Jessica entered, her face uncharacteristically flustered. "Edward, you have visitors." "Amanda is here," with Nicole. Edward sat up straight, the fog of medication clearing instantly. "Amanda, here. Why wasn't I told they were coming?" "It was a surprise, apparently," Jessica replied, her voice neutral despite the tension in her shoulders. "They're settling in upstairs. Amanda doesn't look well." Edward stood, steadying himself against his desk. "What do you mean, what's wrong with her?" "I'm not sure yet, but it reminds me of..." Jessica hesitated. "Of what?" Edward demanded. "Of Catherine, in the early days." The color drained from Edward's face. "That's impossible, that was. It was a rare condition. The doctors said..." "I know what they said," Jessica soothed, taking his arm. "Let me help you upstairs. And Edward, try not to upset yourself, your heart, remember." From the garden, Cody watched the newcomers through the roses. The younger woman, tall, confident, helped the older one from the car. Something about her struck him, sending a jolt of recognition through his chest. This had to be Nicole, Michael's cousin. Betty had described her, shown him old photographs, explained the connection. He hadn't expected her to return now, just as his plan was taking shape. Months of careful work, gaining Edward's trust, searching for evidence while avoiding Jessica's suspicious gaze, and now this complication. Cody retreated to the gardener's cottage and pulled out the old tin box hidden beneath a loose floorboard. Inside lay newspaper clippings, notes in Betty's spidery handwriting, and the silver medallion, his father's medallion. The angel's face gleamed in the afternoon light, the inscription still clear. "To my son Michael, your blood is my blood. Until eternity, Father." A soft knock at his door made him hastily hide the box. Through the window, he saw Nicole standing outside, her posture straight but hesitant, taking a deep breath. Cody opened the door, careful to maintain the persona he'd crafted. "Can I help you, miss?" Nicole studied him with keen eyes. "I'm Nicole Miller, Edward's niece. I was hoping to speak with the gardener about the roses. My uncle mentioned you're quite knowledgeable." "Cody Davis, ma'am. I've only been here 8 months, but I'd be happy to show you around." As they walked toward the main garden, Nicole cast a sideways glance at his profile. "Have we met before, Mr. Davis? You seem familiar somehow." Cody kept his eyes on the path ahead. "I don't believe so, Miss Miller. I think I'd remember." Back at the main house, Amanda Miller lay in her bed, her breathing labored. From her handbag, she withdrew a small leather-bound journal, its pages yellow with age, Catherine's diary, the one she'd managed to hide from Jessica years ago. When Nicole returned, Amanda beckoned her close, pressing the diary into her hands. "Mom, what is this?" "Catherine's," Amanda whispered. "Read it, decode it." She was always clever with her little codes, even as children. "What am I looking for?" Amanda's fingers tightened around Nicole's wrist with surprising strength. The truth, Nikki, about Michael, about Catherine's death. Her eyes darted toward the door. Nothing in Highland Estate is what it seems. Remember that? Mom, you're scaring me. Good, Amanda replied, her voice fading as exhaustion overtook her. You should be scared. We all should be. Outside the window, the roses swayed in the afternoon breeze, their thorns sharp and waiting. That night, Nicole sat cross-legged on her bed, Catherine's diary open in her lap. The leather binding was cracked with age, the pages filled with her aunt's elegant script. At first glance, it appeared to be ordinary entries about daily life, gardening notes, household accounts, social visits. But Nicole quickly noticed the pattern of dots beneath certain letters, a simple cipher she and Catherine had devised during childhood summers. Clever, Aunt Catherine, Nicole murmured, grabbing a notepad to work through the code. The first decoded message sent a chill down her spine. Jessica watches everything. Don't trust the medication, as she continued deciphering. A knock at her door made her jump. She slipped the diary under her pillow before calling, "Come in." Jessica entered with a cup of steaming tea. "I thought you might need this after your long journey. How's Amanda resting?" "Finally asleep," Nicole said, watching Jessica's eyes scan the room. "Thank you for the tea." "Of course. We're family, after all." Jessica placed the cup on the nightstand. "Edward would like to see you in the morning. He's quite overwhelmed by your sudden arrival." "I'm sure he is," Nicole replied, keeping her tone neutral. "Mom was insistent we come now." Jessica lingered by the bookshelf, fingers trailing over old volumes. Amanda never did explain why she left so abruptly after Catherine's funeral. Some losses are harder to bear than others. Indeed, Jessica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, drink your tea before it gets cold. Good night, Nicole." After Jessica left, Nicole stared at the untouched cup. She waited 10 minutes, then quietly dumped the liquid into a potted plant, her aunt's warning echoing in her mind. The following morning, Edward sat in his study, gazing at an old photograph of Michael. The boy had his mother's eyes and Edward's stubborn chin. He looked up when Nicole entered, hastily returning the photo to a drawer. "Uncle Edward," Nicole said, embracing him. "It's been too long." "Look at you," Edward replied, his voice thick with emotion. "The spitting image of your mother at your age." He gestured to a chair. "Sit, please. Tell me about your work. A forensic investigator. That's quite impressive." Nicole smiled. "Just finished my certification. I was planning to start at the county lab next month, but with Mom's condition..." Edward's expression darkened. "Yes, Jessica mentioned Amanda isn't well. What exactly is wrong? The doctors aren't sure. Progressive weakness, confusion, stomach pains." Nicole hesitated. "Mom says it reminds her of Aunt Catherine's illness." Edward's hand trembled as he reached for a glass of water. That's impossible. Catherine had a rare degenerative condition." "Did she?" Nicole asked quietly. "The symptoms started after Michael disappeared, right?" Edward stared out the window at the rose garden, where Cody was carefully pruning the white blooms. "Michael," he whispered. "So headstrong. Just like me, if only I'd listened." Nicole followed his gaze. "What happened that night, Uncle Edward?" Mom would never talk about it. 26 years earlier, rain pounded on the windows of Highland Estate as thunder rolled across the sky. In Edward's study, voices rose above the storm. "She's a Thompson, for God's sake," Edward shouted, slamming his fist on the desk. "Have you forgotten their family tried to bankrupt us? That Robert Thompson diverted our water rights for years?" 18-year-old Michael stood his ground, chin raised defiantly. "Sarah isn't her father. I love her, and I won't let your ancient feud dictate my life." Catherine placed a calming hand on her husband's arm. "Edward, please, Michael's an adult now." "An adult," Edward scoffed. "He's throwing away his future for a summer romance." "It's not just a romance," Michael insisted. "Sarah's pregnant." The room fell silent except for the rain. Edward's face drained of color. "You've made a Thompson girl pregnant," he finally said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Get out." "Edward?" Catherine gasped. "No, it's fine," Michael said coldly, backing toward the door. "I'm leaving anyway. Sarah and I are going away together. I came to say goodbye, not to ask permission." "If you walk out that door," Edward warned, "don't bother coming back." Michael's eyes, so like his mother's, hardened. "Goodbye, Father." The door slammed behind him. It was the last time anyone at Highland Estate saw Michael Miller alive. "I was so angry," Edward told Nicole, his voice barely audible. "I thought he'd cool off, come back in a few days, but he never did." He looked up, eyes glistening. The police found his car abandoned at Spencer Creek Bridge, but no sign of Michael. Some thought suicide. Others suspected foul play. After a year, the case went cold. "And Sarah Thompson?" Nicole asked. "Disappeared around the same time. Her father claimed she'd gone to live with relatives overseas." Edward passed a hand over his face. Catherine never believed it. She started investigating on her own, but then her illness began. "After she died, I just gave up." Nicole reached for his hand. "I'm sorry, Uncle Edward." A knock interrupted them. Jessica entered with a small pill case. "Time for your medication, Edward." Her eyes flicked to Nicole. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Just catching up," Edward said, accepting the pills. Nicole was asking about Michael. Something flickered across Jessica's face. Too quick to name. "Such a tragedy, Edward. Don't forget, Doctor. Reynolds is coming at 2. She turned to Nicole. "Perhaps you should check on your mother. She seemed quite agitated this morning." After Jessica left, Edward swallowed his pills with a grimace. "Jessica's been my rock since Catherine died. Don't know what I'd do without her." Nicole nodded, watching how quickly the medication seemed to dull her uncle's eyes. "I should go see Mom. We'll talk more later." Outside, Nicole found Cody trimming the hedge that bordered the eastern lawn. Something about his methodical movements captivated her, each cut precise, almost reverent. "You seem to genuinely care about these gardens," she said, approaching. Cody glanced up, then returned to his work. "Plants are honest, Miss Miller. They respond to how you treat them. No deception. Unlike people." A slight smile touched his lips. "I wouldn't know about that. How did you come to work at Highland Estate?" Betty, the previous gardener, was a family friend. When she passed, Mr. Miller needed help. Simple as that. Nicole studied his profile. There was something oddly familiar about his features. "Did you know my cousin Michael? You'd have been very young, but..." Cody's shears slipped, nearly cutting his finger. "No, ma'am. As I said, I've only been here 8 months." He looked toward the house. "Miss Harper is watching us. She doesn't approve of the staff chatting with family." Nicole turned to see Jessica at an upstairs window, her posture rigid. "Why doesn't that surprise me?" she murmured. "One more question. Have there been any thefts on the property recently?" Cody's expression turned guarded. "You should ask Miss Harper about that, ma'am." As Nicole walked away, she didn't see Cody slip his hand into his pocket, fingers closing around the silver medallion hidden there. That evening, Nicole continued decoding Catherine's diary in her room. The more she read, the more disturbed she became. Her aunt had documented increasingly suspicious behavior from Jessica: missing medication, mysterious phone calls, unexplained access to estate accounts. A soft tap at her door startled her. Amanda entered, looking frailer than ever in her nightgown. "Mom, you should be resting," Nicole said, helping her to a chair. "No time for rest," Amanda whispered. "Have you decoded it yet?" "Parts of it." Aunt Catherine was suspicious of Jessica. Amanda nodded. "Catherine called me, a week before she died. Said she had proof Jessica was poisoning her. I was going to come, but then..." She pressed a hand to her stomach, wincing. The diary was all she could hide in time. "Mom, what are you saying?" "History repeats, Nikki." Amanda's eyes drifted to the window. "Watch the new gardener. He's not what he seems either." Before Nicole could press further, a crash from downstairs interrupted them. They hurried to the hallway to find Edward kneeling beside a fallen display case. Precious family heirlooms scattered across the floor. Jessica was already there, helping Edward up. "What happened?" she demanded. Edward looked confused. I don't know. I thought I saw someone." "Another missing episode," Jessica sighed, addressing Nicole and Amanda. "The doctor says they'll get worse with time." Nicole bent to examine the case. The lock had been forced, and several items, including Catherine's antique locket, were missing. "This wasn't an accident," she said. "Someone broke in." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "Nothing is missing. Edward simply had an episode." "Catherine's locket is gone," Amanda insisted. It's been gone for years, Jessica countered. Right after your cousin disappeared, in fact. As they argued, Nicole noticed Cody watching from the garden door, his expression unreadable. When their eyes met, he quickly disappeared into the darkness. The following morning, a heated argument echoed from Edward's study. Nicole paused in the hallway, listening to Jessica's sharp tone cutting through the oak door. Edward, be reasonable. Things have been disappearing for weeks. First your father's pocket watch, then Catherine's pearl earrings, and now this. We don't know that Cody took anything, Edward replied, his voice weaker than Jessica's but still stubborn. The boy has been nothing but dedicated. That's how these people operate, Jessica insisted. They gain your trust, then take advantage. Betty vouched for him, but Betty's judgment was questionable in her final years. Nicole knocked and entered without waiting for permission. Jessica stood by the window, arms crossed, while Edward sat behind his desk looking exhausted. Is everything all right? Nicole asked. Jessica smiled thinly. Just a small staff issue, nothing for you to worry about. If it's about last night's break-in, I'd like to help, Nicole said. I am a trained investigator after all. Edward brightened. That's an excellent idea. These are family matters, Jessica countered. Besides, your mother needs you. Mom's resting comfortably, Nicole said, holding Jessica's gaze. And as family, I'm concerned about these thefts. Jessica's smile tightened. Very well. I've already called the police about Cody Davis. They'll be here this afternoon. Edward looked up, alarmed. You did what? Without consulting me. I was protecting you, Edward, as I always do. Jessica checked her watch. I need to prepare your noon medications, excuse me. After she left, Nicole turned to her uncle. You don't believe Cody's responsible. Edward sighed. I don't know what to believe anymore, but something about that boy. He reminds me of someone. Michael, Nicole suggested quietly. Edward's eyes widened. Yes, how did you? I noticed it too. Nicole sat across from him. Uncle Edward, how much do you actually know about Cody? Not much. Betty recommended him before she passed. Said he had a gift with plants. Edward rubbed his temples. Jessica thinks I'm losing my mind. Seeing Michael in every young man. Maybe she's right. Nicole squeezed his hand. I don't think you're losing your mind, but I do think we should talk to Cody before the police arrive. They found Cody in the greenhouse, carefully transplanting rose cuttings. His movements were methodical, almost surgeon-like in their precision. He looked up as they entered, wiping soil from his hands. Mr. Miller, Miss Miller, Cody, Edward began awkwardly. There's been some concern about missing items from the house. The young man's face remained impassive. Miss Harper thinks I took them. Did you? Nicole asked directly. No, ma'am. I respect Mr. Miller and this property too much for that. Edward studied him. Jessica has called the police. They'll be here soon. Something flickered in Cody's eyes. Not fear, but calculation. I see. If you have nothing to hide. There's nothing to worry about, Nicole said, watching his reaction carefully. With all due respect, Miss Miller, the police tend to see what they expect to see. A young man with no family, working on a wealthy estate where items go missing. The conclusion seems obvious. You have no family? Edward asked. Cody hesitated. My mother died when I was young. I never knew my father. Nicole noted how he avoided direct lies while concealing the truth. Cody, if you're innocent, let us help you. But we need to know the truth. The truth, Cody repeated softly, turning back to his roses. The truth is complicated. Miss Miller, Edward stepped forward. I'm not going to let an innocent man be accused without a chance to defend himself. Jessica may run this house, but I still own it. Cody looked up, surprised at Edward's sudden firmness. Thank you, sir, but I think it might be better if I left. I've saved enough to... Nonsense, Edward interrupted. I won't hear of it. You're staying. At least until we sort this out. As they left the greenhouse, Nicole whispered to her uncle. That was unexpected. Edward straightened his shoulders. Sometimes Jessica forgets whose name is on the deed. By afternoon, dark clouds gathered over Highland Estate. Promising another thunderstorm, Nicole found Jessica in the kitchen, aggressively chopping vegetables. The police just called, Jessica said without looking up. They're delayed until tomorrow, apparently. Petty theft isn't a priority. That's unfortunate, Nicole replied, keeping her tone neutral. Uncle Edward has decided Cody stays until there's proof against him. Jessica's knife paused mid-chop. Edward isn't thinking clearly. His medication. About that, Nicole interrupted. What exactly are you giving him? His symptoms seem to worsen after each dose. Jessica's smile was cold as ice. I'm a registered nurse, Nicole. Edward's medication is prescribed by Dr. Reynolds. If you have concerns, take them up with him. She resumed chopping with renewed vigor, though I doubt he'll appreciate a newly certified forensic technician questioning his expertise. Investigator, Nicole corrected. And I'm not questioning his expertise, just your administration of it. Their standoff was interrupted by a crash of thunder, followed by Edward's voice shouting from the front of the house. They rushed to find him at the open door, rain pouring in as he called out to Cody, who was walking down the driveway with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Edward, close the door. You'll catch your death, Jessica scolded. Edward ignored her. Cody, come back here this instant. The young man paused, rain plastering his hair to his forehead, but didn't turn. Edward stepped onto the porch despite Jessica's protests. That's an order, not a request. Reluctantly, Cody trudged back toward the house. As he climbed the steps, his foot caught on the uneven stone. He stumbled, dropping his bag. The contents spilled across the wet porch. Clothes, a dog-eared book, and something small and silver that skittered to a stop at Edward's feet. The world seemed to freeze as Edward bent to pick up the medallion. His hands trembled as he turned the silver angel over, revealing the inscription on the back. Where did you get this? He whispered, voice barely audible above the rain. Cody stood motionless, rain streaming down his face. Sir, I can explain. This was Michael's. Edward looked up, his eyes wild. I gave this to my son on his 15th birthday. How do you have it? Jessica pushed past Nicole. He stole it, obviously, just like the other items. No, Edward said, his voice gaining strength. This wasn't in the house. Michael was wearing it the night he disappeared. A heavy silence fell, broken only by the pounding rain. Nicole stepped forward. Cody, you need to tell us the truth now. The young man's shoulders sagged. Can we go inside? It's a long story. In Edward's study, Cody sat with a towel around his shoulders, the medallion now on the desk between them. Jessica hovered near Edward, her face a mask of concern that didn't reach her eyes. My mother was Sarah Thompson, Cody began, his voice steady despite his dripping clothes. She died when I was 8. Betty raised me after that. Edward leaned forward. Betty, our Betty. Cody nodded. She was friends with my mother when Sarah died. Betty took me in, raised me in a small town about 50 miles from here. Convenient that neither woman is alive to verify this tale, Jessica commented. Cody ignored her. Before she died, Betty told me about Highland Estate, about the Miller family. She said I had a right to know my history. He reached for the medallion. She gave me this, said it belonged to my mother, who got it from a man she loved, a man named Michael Miller. Edward's face had gone pale. If what you're saying is true, then you're Sarah Thompson's son, Cody finished carefully. Yes, sir, Jessica scoffed. This is absurd. He's clearly lying to avoid arrest. Sarah Thompson disappeared the same time Michael did. Everyone knows that. Not exactly, Cody countered. She went into hiding when she discovered she was pregnant. Her father would have disowned her for carrying a Miller child. Nicole studied him intently. You said you were 8 when she died. That would make you 26, Cody supplied quickly. The same age Michael would have been when he disappeared, Nicole noted. The timeline didn't quite add up, but she kept that observation to herself. Edward stood suddenly, swaying slightly. I need to think. He picked up the medallion, clutching it tightly. No one is calling the police. No one is leaving until I figure out what's happening in my house. Everything stays as it is. He looked at Cody, including you, young man. As Edward left the room, Jessica close behind, Nicole remained, watching Cody's face carefully. You're not telling the whole truth, she said once they were alone. A sad smile touched his lips. No one in this house is Miss Miller. Not even you. Nicole slipped into her mother's darkened room, moving quietly to avoid waking her. Amanda lay still, her breathing shallow, skin waxy in the dim light filtering through the heavy curtains. On the bedside table sat 3 amber prescription bottles with Jessica's precise handwriting on the labels. Carefully, Nicole photographed each bottle with her phone, then using a small plastic bag from her pocket, collected a sample from each. As she worked, Amanda's eyes fluttered open. "Nikki," she whispered, "be careful." Nicole took her mother's hand. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm disappearing piece by piece." "Just like Catherine did." Amanda's fingers tightened around Nicole's. "Did you find anything in the diary?" "Some things," Nicole admitted. "But it's slow work with the code, Mom. I need to ask. Did you start feeling sick before or after you decided to come here?" Amanda's cloudy eyes focused briefly. "Before, that's why I came. I recognized the symptoms from watching Catherine waste away. The doctors are baffled, but I know." Her voice dropped lower. "It's her, just like with Catherine." "Jessica," Nicole confirmed. Amanda nodded weakly. "I suspected for years, but had no proof. Then last month. She came to visit me. Brought tea and biscuits. So thoughtful." Her laugh turned into a cough. 2 days later, I couldn't get out of bed. Nicole's blood ran cold. "She poisoned you. Watch your uncle," Amanda warned. "His heart condition started the same way. Confusion, weakness, strange episodes." A soft knock interrupted them. Nicole quickly pocketed the samples as the door opened to reveal Jessica with a tray. "Time for Amanda's medication," Jessica announced, her smile professional. "How are we feeling today?" "Tired," Amanda replied, her earlier alertness evaporating. "So tired." Jessica efficiently arranged pills into a small cup. "These will help with the pain." She glanced at Nicole. "You look exhausted, dear. Why don't you get some rest? I can sit with Amanda." "I'm fine," Nicole said firmly. "I'll stay." Jessica's smile remained, but her eyes hardened. "Suit yourself." She handed the cup to Amanda, who obediently swallowed the pills. "Dr. Reynolds will be by tomorrow to check on both Edward and Amanda. Such a blessing to have him manage the family's care." After Jessica left, Nicole waited a few minutes before carefully extracting the pills from her mother's mouth, where she'd hidden them under her tongue. "Good girl," Amanda murmured. "You always were clever." Nicole added the pills to her collection of samples. "I need to get these analyzed. There's a lab in town that might help." Amanda's eyelids drooped. "The gardener. Watch him too, not what he seems." "Rest, Mom," Nicole whispered, kissing her forehead. "I'll handle everything." In the kitchen, Nicole found Cody making tea, his movements as precise with household tasks as they were in the garden. "Miss Harper won't like you using the family kitchen," she remarked, leaning against the doorframe. "Miss Harper is giving Mr. Miller his evening medication. This provides approximately 8 minutes of freedom." He glanced up. "Tea." Nicole accepted the cup he offered. "Why did you lie about your age?" Cody didn't flinch. "I never explicitly stated my age. You implied you were 26, if you're Sarah Thompson's son, and Sarah disappeared at the same time as Michael. You can't be older than 25? Very observant." Cody sipped his tea. "Does it matter? It matters if you're hiding something that could help my uncle, or hurt him." Cody set down his cup. "I'm not here to hurt Edward Miller." "Then why are you here? The truth this time." Before he could answer, the kitchen door swung open, and Jessica entered. Her eyes darted between them, suspicion evident. "Nicole, I've been looking for you. Edward wants to speak with you." Her gaze shifted to Cody. "I believe the eastern hedges need attention, Davis." Cody nodded respectfully. "Just finishing my break, ma'am." He rinsed his cup and slipped past Jessica, who watched him with narrowed eyes. "You should be careful around him," Jessica said once he was gone. "His story doesn't add up." "No," Nicole agreed. "None of the stories in this house seem to add up." Jessica's smile was tight. "Edward is waiting in his study." Edward sat behind his desk, the medallion in his hands, turning it over repeatedly as if it might reveal new secrets with each rotation. "You wanted to see me?" Nicole asked, closing the door behind her. Edward looked up, his eyes clearer than she'd seen since arriving. "I haven't been taking my medication," he confessed. "Not since yesterday. My mind feels sharper." Nicole sat across from him. "Maybe that's because you don't need as much as you've been given." Edward's brow furrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "Uncle Edward, Do you remember when your heart condition was diagnosed? He thought for a moment. About 5 years ago, I started having episodes. Confusion, weakness. Jessica was concerned and called Dr. Reynolds. He's been treating me since. And Dr. Reynolds is an old colleague of Jessica's from her nursing days. He retired to private practice. Edward's eyes narrowed. Nicole, what are you getting at? I'd like to take samples of your medication to be analyzed. Edward stared at her. You think Jessica is... No, that's impossible. She's cared for this family for decades. Uncle Edward, my mother is experiencing the same symptoms Catherine had, and now you. Don't you find that strange? Edward clutched the medallion tighter. Even if what you're suggesting were true, why, what would Jessica gain? Control of Highland Estate, Nicole said simply. She's been managing everything for years, with you increasingly dependent on her, and no direct heirs. But Michael's son, Edward trailed off, looking down at the medallion. If he is Michael's son, Nicole cautioned, we only have his word and a medallion that could have been acquired in other ways. Edward sank back in his chair. I don't know what to believe anymore. He pushed a small leather box across the desk. My medication. Take what you need for your tests. Nicole carefully collected samples. I'll have answers soon. Until then, keep pretending to take the pills and watch Cody. We still don't know his true intentions. The town's medical laboratory was small, but well-equipped. Dr. Sanchez, an old friend of Nicole's from university, agreed to analyze the samples as a personal favor. This is highly irregular, she said, labeling the containers. You realize I should be asking for proper documentation. I know, Elena, but this is family. I think someone's being poisoned. Dr. Sanchez raised an eyebrow. That's a serious accusation. What am I looking for? Start with common neurotoxins, something that would cause progressive weakness, confusion, stomach aches, heart palpitations. That narrows it down to about 50 substances. Elena sighed. I'll run the tests, but if I find something illegal, I'm obligated to report it. I'm counting on it, Nicole replied, when Nicole returned to Highland Estate. She found her mother's room empty, the bed neatly made. Panic surged through her until she heard voices from the garden. Through the window, she spotted Amanda in a wheelchair, Edward beside her, both watching Cody work among the roses. Jessica approached from behind. The fresh air is good for them both, she said, her voice startling Nicole. Your mother insisted despite my concerns about her strength. How thoughtful of you to allow it, Nicole replied, not bothering to hide her sarcasm. Jessica's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. Family is everything to me. Nicole, I've dedicated my life to caring for the Millers, something you might understand if you hadn't stayed away for 15 years. Is that why you visited my mother last month? Out of family dedication? Jessica's expression didn't change, but Nicole noticed her hands tighten briefly. Someone had to check on Amanda. Edward was too ill to travel. How convenient that she became ill right after your visit. Coincidences happen, Jessica said smoothly. Just like Cody Davis showing up right after Betty died. Just like you arriving now, when Edward is most vulnerable. She glanced at her watch. Excuse me, it's time for Edward's medication. As Jessica walked away, Nicole watched her brother go to her uncle, pills and water in hand. Edward obediently put them to his mouth, then discreetly slipped them into his pocket. When Jessica turned to Amanda, in the garden, Cody looked up and caught Nicole's eye. The silent acknowledgement that passed between them surprised her, a moment of unexpected alliance against a common enemy. Her phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Preliminary results. Call me ASAP. This is serious. Aconitine. Dr. Sanchez's voice crackled through Nicole's phone as she paced the length of her bedroom. It's in all the samples you gave me, in varying concentrations. Nicole pressed the phone closer to her ear. Aconitine? What is that? A neurotoxin derived from monkshood, also called wolfsbane or aconite. It's a flowering plant, highly toxic, causes gastrointestinal issues, then progresses to numbness, weakness, visual disturbances, and eventually heart arrhythmias. Elena paused. Nicole, this isn't accidental. The concentrations are too precise, too consistent to be environmental contamination. Someone's administering it deliberately, Nicole confirmed, her worst fears validated. Exactly. And they know what they're doing. Small doses over time, building up in the system, it mimics numerous natural illnesses, making it hard to detect unless you're specifically looking for it. Another pause. You realize I have to report this to the authorities. I know, but give me 24 hours first. I need to gather more evidence. After ending the call, Nicole sat on the edge of her bed, Catherine's diary open beside her. The latest decoded entries painted a clear picture of her aunt's growing suspicion of Jessica, but suspicion wasn't proof, and proof was what she needed to protect her family. A soft tap at her door made her quickly hide the diary. "Come in." Cody entered, closing the door quietly behind him. "Miss Harper is occupied with your mother. We don't have much time." Nicole studied him, weighing her options. Finally, she decided to take a chance. "The medications my uncle and mother have been taking contain aconitine, a poison derived from a plant." If Cody was surprised, he didn't show it. "Monkshood. It grows in the northeastern corner of the property. I've been removing it systematically since I arrived." "You knew," Betty suspected. Before she died, she'd been collecting samples of Catherine's medication. Her notes mentioned symptoms consistent with aconite poisoning. Nicole leaned forward. "Cody, it's time for the whole truth. Who are you really?" He hesitated, then straightened his shoulders. "Not here. There's something I need to show you first. Michael's old room. Have you been inside? It's been locked since I arrived. Jessica keeps the key, but I know another way in. Meet me there in 20 minutes. 3rd floor, East Wing." The 3rd floor of Highland Estate was rarely used, filled with guest rooms that hadn't seen visitors in years. Michael's room stood at the end of the hallway, door firmly closed with a heavy padlock securing it. Nicole arrived to find Cody already waiting, silently indicating she should follow him. He led her to the adjacent room, then to a connecting bathroom. Removing the mirror above the sink revealed a small service passage. "The original owners built maintenance passages between rooms," he explained. "Betty showed me when I first arrived. The passage was narrow and dusty, clearly unused for decades. They emerged into Michael's bedroom, frozen in time like a museum exhibit to a lost son. Posters of 90s rock bands adorned the walls, trophies lined a shelf, and a collection of baseball caps hung on hooks. "Jessica keeps it exactly as it was," Cody said softly. "Comes in weekly to dust, but nothing is ever moved or removed." Nicole ran her fingers over the desk, examining framed photographs. Michael with his parents. Michael playing baseball. Michael grinning at the camera with his arm around a pretty blonde girl. "Sarah Thompson," Cody confirmed, noticing her interest in the photo. "She was beautiful." "Yes, she was." His voice carried a weight of sadness that seemed too personal for someone who claimed to have lost his mother at 8. Nicole turned to face him. "What are we looking for?" "Betty told me Michael had a hiding place, somewhere even his parents didn't know about." Cody moved to the bookshelf, scanning the titles. She wasn't sure exactly where, but thought it might be near his favorite books. They searched methodically, checking behind picture frames, under floorboards, inside the mattress. Finally, Nicole noticed a slight discoloration on the wall behind the headboard. Pressing against it revealed a loose panel that slid aside, exposing a small cubbyhole. Inside was a metal box, rusty with age. Nicole pulled it out with trembling hands and placed it on the bed between them. The lock was old and yielded easily to Cody's pocketknife. The contents were a time capsule of young love and desperate plans. Letters from Sarah to Michael, tied with faded ribbon, a small ultrasound image, a map with a route marked in red, leading to a town hundreds of miles away, and beneath everything, a journal with Catherine's name inscribed on the first page. "This isn't the same diary my mother gave me," Nicole said, flipping through the pages. "Catherine must have kept multiple journals," Cody suggested. "This one seems more personal." The entries were not coded but written in clear, increasingly frantic language. Nicole read aloud from the final pages. June 15th. Michael has been gone a week. Edward refuses to call the police, insisting he'll return when he comes to his senses. I found Sarah's number and called her parents home, but Robert Thompson said she'd left for Europe. I don't believe him. Something is terribly wrong. June 20th. Jessica suggested a private investigator, someone discreet who won't embarrass the family. I agreed, desperate for any help. She recommended someone she knew from nursing school whose brother works in law enforcement. July 3rd. The investigator found nothing. It's as if both Michael and Sarah vanished into thin air. Edward is drinking heavily. Jessica has moved into the guest room to be available at all hours. July 15th. I'm beginning to feel strange. Stomach pains, dizziness. Doctor says it's stress and prescribed rest. Jessica has been preparing all my meals, insisting I need to keep up my strength. August 4. Found Jessica in Michael's room today, going through his things. She claimed to be cleaning, but I caught her trying to open his desk drawer. When confronted, she suggested my episodes are making me paranoid. What episodes? I don't remember having episodes. August 16th. Edward is completely dependent on Jessica now. I'm too weak to intervene. My hands shake so badly I can barely write. I've stopped taking the tea Jessica brings. Too late, I fear. Must contact Amanda. The final entry trailed off mid-sentence. Nicole closed the journal, her throat tight. She knew. Yes, Cody agreed, but couldn't prove it in time. Nicole picked up one of Sarah's letters, reading silently before looking up at Cody with widening eyes. This letter. Sarah tells Michael she's 2 months pregnant. She's excited but terrified about their plan to run away together. She shuffled through the remaining letters. The last one is dated the day before Michael disappeared. They were meeting at Spencer Creek Bridge to leave town together. Cody reached for the ultrasound image. Their child. You. Nicole met his gaze steadily. That's what you couldn't tell us downstairs. You're not just Sarah's son. You're Michael's son, too. You're a Miller. Before Cody could respond, a distant crash followed by a shout echoed through the house. They quickly replaced everything except Catherine's journal and hurried back through the passage. Downstairs, they found Amanda collapsed on the parlor floor, Jessica kneeling beside her. Checking her pulse, Edward stood frozen in the doorway, face ashen. What happened? Nicole demanded, rushing to her mother's side. She insisted on walking unassisted. Jessica explained, her voice clinical. Against my explicit instructions, she collapsed before I could reach her. Amanda's eyes fluttered open, focusing on Nicole. Don't, she whispered. Don't drink. Shh. Save your strength, Jessica soothed, efficiently administering an injection. This will help with the pain. What are you giving her? Nicole asked sharply. A mild sedative Dr. Reynolds prescribed. Jessica's smile was professional but cold. Edward, you should take your medication as well. All this excitement isn't good for your heart. Edward's hand went to his chest. Perhaps you're right. I do feel rather strange. He swayed slightly, face paling further. Uncle Edward. Nicole moved toward him, but Jessica was faster. It's another episode, Jessica declared, taking Edward's arm. Cody, help me get him to his room, Nicole. Stay with your mother until I return. As they guided Edward away, Nicole noticed a small smile playing at the corners of Jessica's mouth. She turned back to her mother, who had again lost consciousness, a thin trail of spittle at the corner of her lips. Hang on, Mom, she whispered. I'm going to end this, I promise. The hospital corridor was sterile and quiet, save for the distant beeping of monitors and the soft-soled footsteps of nurses making their rounds. Nicole sat outside Edward's room, her body tense as she watched Jessica speaking with Dr. Reynolds, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses whose professional demeanor couldn't quite mask the nervous glances he kept shooting in Nicole's direction. Heart arrhythmia, that's the official diagnosis, Jessica announced as she approached Nicole. Dr. Reynolds wants to keep him overnight for observation, but he's confident Edward will recover with proper medication. What a relief, Nicole replied, her voice deliberately neutral. And what about the blood tests I requested? The toxicology screen? Jessica's smile tightened. Dr. Reynolds doesn't believe those are necessary given Edward's known condition. I insist, Nicole said, standing to match Jessica's height, as does my uncle. Dr. Reynolds cleared his throat. Miss Miller, your uncle's symptoms are consistent with cardiac arrhythmia. Running unnecessary tests would only burden our limited resources and... Dr. Reynolds, Nicole interrupted. I've already submitted samples of my uncle's medication to the state laboratory. They've identified aconitine, a potent neurotoxin. I'd hate to inform them that Highland General Hospital refused to conduct standard toxicology screenings on a potential poisoning victim. The doctor's face paled. Poisoning. That's a serious accusation. One easily verified with proper testing. Nicole countered. Jessica placed a reassuring hand on the doctor's arm. James, perhaps it's best to humor them. When the tests come back negative, it will put these ridiculous suspicions to rest. Dr. Reynolds nodded stiffly. I'll order the tests, but I maintain that this is unnecessary. As he walked away, Jessica's composed facade slipped just enough for Nicole to glimpse the fury beneath. You're making a mistake, Nicole. Your accusations are causing unnecessary stress for everyone, especially Edward. I'm not the one hurting him, Jessica. Jessica leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Be careful. You have no idea what you're doing. Before Nicole could respond, the elevator doors opened, and Cody stepped out, looking distinctly uncomfortable in the hospital environment. How is he? He asked, keeping a cautious distance from Jessica. Stable, Nicole replied. Mom, no change. The nurse is with her. Cody shifted his weight. Mr. Davis from the sheriff's office is at the estate. He wants to speak with you about the items you reported missing. Jessica's eyebrows rose. You called the sheriff without consulting me. I'm a forensic investigator reporting potential evidence in what I believe is a criminal case. Nicole replied calmly. I don't need your permission. Jessica's smile returned, cold and calculating. Of course. Well, I'll stay with Edward. He'll want a familiar face when he wakes. She turned, pausing to add, Cody, I believe your presence here is inappropriate. You should return to your duties. After she disappeared into Edward's room, Nicole led Cody to a quiet corner of the waiting area. Any news from your lab contact? He asked. Elena confirmed aconitine in all the samples. Nicole replied, She's reported it to the authorities, but it could take days for them to act. We don't have that kind of time. Cody nodded. What do you need from me? Nicole studied him, making a decision. The truth. All of it. This time. They found a small cafe across from the hospital, quiet enough for private conversation. Cody wrapped his hands around a coffee mug, staring into its depths as if gathering courage. Betty raised me just as I told Edward, he began. But I was only a few months old when Sarah died. Not 8 years. Betty was Sarah's midwife when she gave birth in hiding. She delivered me in a cabin 50 miles from Highland Estate. And Michael, Nicole prompted gently. Gone by then. Sarah never knew what happened to him. She waited at Spencer Creek Bridge that night, but he never arrived. Cody's knuckles whitened around the mug. Betty said Sarah was convinced Jessica had something to do with his disappearance. She'd overheard Jessica arguing with Michael the day before, threatening to tell Edward about what really happened to Catherine if Michael didn't end things with Sarah. So Sarah went into hiding to protect their child. You. Cody nodded. She was terrified Jessica would come after her next. For 8 years, we moved from town to town, always looking over our shoulders. Then Sarah started getting sick. The same symptoms Catherine had. Within months, she was gone. Jessica found her, Nicole concluded. Betty thought so. She moved us even further away after that. Changed my name. Kept me hidden. When I was old enough, she told me everything. About my parents. About Highland Estate. About my inheritance. His voice hardened. And about Jessica Harper. Yet you came here, right into her territory. Why? Because Betty was dying, and she was afraid her knowledge would die with her. She'd spent years gathering evidence against Jessica, but as a housekeeper, no one took her seriously. Cody finally looked up. I came to finish what she started, to expose Jessica for what she is, and to claim your birthright, Nicole suggested. A sad smile crossed his face. I never expected Edward to accept me. I just wanted justice for my parents. He hesitated. There's more. After your mother arrived, Jessica became erratic, nervous. She started checking the old stables at night. The stables. They've been abandoned for years. Exactly. Something's hidden there. Something she doesn't want found. Nicole's phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Hospital talk screen ordered by Dr. Reynolds mysteriously canceled. Called in a favor with lab tech. New samples being drawn now. We need to move quickly, Nicole said, showing him the message. Jessica's getting desperate. Which makes her dangerous, Cody warned. Betty suspected Jessica personally killed 4 people. Michael, Catherine, Sarah, and an old caretaker who caught her tampering with Catherine's food. If she thinks we're close to exposing her, Nicole's mind raced with possibilities. We need proof. Concrete evidence that will convince the authorities to act immediately. The stables, Cody suggested. Whatever she's hiding there, it must be important. Tonight, then, Nicole decided. After everyone's asleep. As they left the cafe, Cody hesitated. Nicole, there's one more thing you should know. About us. That we're cousins. She smiled slightly at his surprised expression. I figured that out already. And it doesn't bother you. That you're my long-lost cousin. Why would it? Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment. No reason. We should get back to the hospital. When they returned, they found Frank Parker, the former caretaker, sitting beside Edward's bed. Jessica was notably absent. Frank, Nicole exclaimed. I didn't know you were in town. The older man stood, embracing her warmly. Heard Edward was in the hospital, couldn't stay away. He nodded respectfully to Cody. You must be Betty's boy. She spoke highly of you in her letters. You knew Betty? Cody asked, surprised. For 40 years, Frank confirmed. We kept in touch after Jessica had me fired. Betty never trusted that woman, and neither did I. He lowered his voice. I need to speak with you both, privately, about the night Michael disappeared. They found an empty consultation room. Frank's weathered hands trembled slightly as he spoke. I've carried this too long, he began. That night, I was checking the property before a big storm hit. Saw Jessica driving toward the old stables around midnight. She had her headlights off, moving slow, like she didn't want to be noticed. Cody leaned forward. Did you see Michael? Frank shook his head. Not then, but I noticed her trunk was open a few inches. Like something was too big to fit properly. I followed at a distance, curious. She pulled up to the stables, and I lost sight of her for maybe 20 minutes. When she came back, the trunk was closed, and she was covered in mud, despite the rain not having started yet. Did you investigate? Nicole asked. Tried to. Next morning I went to check. But Jessica caught me, said if I valued my job, I'd keep my nose out of family business. Frank's eyes darkened. 2 weeks later, she accused me of stealing from the house. Edward was too grief-stricken over Michael to question her, and I was gone that same day. Nicole exchanged a glance with Cody. Frank, would you be willing to make a statement to the sheriff? That's why I'm here after all these years. It's time for the truth. Frank stood. Betty always said that boy would come back to Highland Estate one day, one way or another. He looked meaningfully at Cody. Guess she was right. After Frank left, Nicole turned to Cody. We need to search those stables tonight. Whatever Jessica's hiding, it's been there for 26 years. And if we find what I think we'll find, Cody asked quietly. Nicole squeezed his hand. Then you'll finally have justice for your parents, and maybe Edward can finally have peace. The moment lingered between them. Hands still joined, until a nurse appeared to announce that Edward was awake and asking for them both. Edward looked frail against the stark hospital sheets, but his eyes were clearer than Nicole had seen since her arrival at Highland Estate. The hospital had administered fluids and electrolytes, flushing some of the toxins from his system. Jessica's gone to get coffee, he said when they entered. His voice was weak but determined. We don't have much time. Nicole sat beside him, taking his hand. The blood tests confirmed aconitine poisoning. Dr. Reynolds tried to cancel them, but a lab technician ran them anyway. Edward closed his eyes briefly. All these years, I trusted her completely. She exploited that trust, Nicole said gently, just as she did with Catherine. And my son, Edward turned to Cody, studying him with new intensity. You have his eyes, Catherine's eyes. I should have seen it immediately. Cody shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to tell you the truth, but you were smart to be cautious, Edward interrupted. If Jessica had realized who you were, he didn't finish the thought. Tell me about Sarah. Was she happy at least before the end? She was strong, Cody replied carefully. She never stopped loving Michael, or hoping that someday we could come back to Highland Estate as a family. Edward's eyes filled with tears. I was a fool. My pride cost me everything. My son, my wife, and 26 years with my grandson. He squeezed Nicole's hand. Your mother. Stable but weakening, Nicole reported. The doctors are working to identify the exact toxin variant to administer the right antidote. Edward nodded grimly. Jessica won't stop. She's too close to getting what she wants. Which is what, exactly? Nicole asked. Highland Estate. Edward's voice hardened. She's been positioning herself for years, becoming indispensable, isolating me from friends and family, gradually taking control of my finances, with no direct heir. She likely assumed everything would eventually come to her. But then Cody appeared, Nicole said, and Mom and I arrived, disrupting all her careful plans. Edward attempted to sit up straighter, wincing at the effort. The sheriff contacted me. They're searching for Jessica's financial records based on your evidence. Cody moved closer. We believe Jessica hid evidence at the old stables. Frank Parker saw her there the night Michael disappeared. Understanding dawned in Edward's eyes. Michael's body. We're going to investigate tonight, Nicole explained. If we find what we suspect, the authorities can't continue to ignore our claims. Edward reached for Cody's hand, clasping it alongside Nicole's. Be careful. Jessica is dangerous when cornered. The door opened, and Jessica entered with a tray of coffee cups. Her practiced smile faltered slightly at the tableau before her, but quickly recovered. Well, isn't this cozy? She remarked, setting down the tray. Edward, you should be resting, not entertaining. They're family, Jessica, Edward replied, his voice stronger. Something you've tried very hard to keep away from me. Jessica's smile remained fixed. I've only ever had your best interests at heart. You know that. She turned to Nicole and Cody. Visiting hours are nearly over. Edward needs his rest. Actually, Nicole said, standing, the doctor suggested familiar faces would help keep him oriented. I'll be staying tonight. Jessica's composure slipped momentarily. That's unnecessary. I've cared for Edward for years. I know his needs better than anyone. Nevertheless, Edward interjected, I want Nicole to stay. Jessica's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. As you wish, Cody. You should return to Highland Estate, with everyone here. The property is unattended. After a meaningful glance at Nicole, Cody nodded. Of course. I'll check on Mrs. Miller as well. As he left, Jessica busied herself adjusting Edward's pillows and checking his IV line. Dr. Reynolds is concerned about these unnecessary tests, Nicole ordered. They're placing additional strain on your system. Jessica, Edward said quietly. I know about the aconitine. Her hands stilled for just a moment before resuming their task. I don't know what you're talking about. Catherine's journal, Sarah's letters, the medallion. It's all coming together now. Edward's voice was calm but firm. What did you do to my son? Jessica straightened, her mask of concern transforming into something cold and calculating. You're confused, Edward. The medication is affecting your thinking. Perhaps we should call Dr. Reynolds to prescribe more poison, Nicole interjected. Jessica's laugh was brittle. This is absurd. I've dedicated my life to this family. Why would I harm any of you? Highland Estate, Edward replied simply. You've always wanted what wasn't yours. Something dangerous flashed in Jessica's eyes. Everything I did was for us, Edward. Catherine was weak. She couldn't handle the responsibilities of the estate. And Michael, he was going to throw away his inheritance for that Thompson girl. The admission hung in the air between them. Edward's face had gone pale. So you did kill him? Jessica straightened her shoulders. I protected what was ours. What should have been ours. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. I loved you for years while you were blind to everything but Catherine. I was the one who held the estate together after she died. The one who cared for you when everyone else abandoned you. You poisoned me, Edward said, his voice breaking. Just like you poisoned Catherine. I saved you from yourself. Jessica's composure returned, a chilling calm settling over her features. This conversation is over. You're clearly not well, Edward. I'm going to speak with Dr. Reynolds about adjusting your medication. As she turned to leave, Nicole blocked her path. You're not going anywhere except to jail. Jessica smiled thinly. On what evidence? The ramblings of a sick old man, the desperate accusations of a niece who abandoned her family for 15 years, or perhaps the word of a gardener with suspicious motives. She stepped closer to Nicole. Choose your next move carefully. People have accidents at Highland Estate with alarming frequency. With that, she brushed past Nicole and out the door. At Highland Estate, Cody moved through the shadowy halls with practiced stealth. He'd learned the rhythm of the old house during his months there, which floorboards creaked, which doors hinged silently, making his way to Amanda's room. He found her sleeping restlessly, her breath shallow and labored. Gently, he placed a hand on her forehead. "Hang on, Mrs. Miller. Just a little longer." As he turned to leave, something on the nightstand caught his eye. A prescription bottle with Jessica's handwriting that hadn't been there that morning. Carefully, he pocketed it, then continued to Betty's old room in the servants' wing. The room remained untouched since her death, preserved more out of convenience than sentiment. Cody moved directly to the loose floorboard beneath the small writing desk, retrieving a weathered leather journal, Betty's record of her suspicions spanning decades. As he leafed through the familiar pages, a new urgency gripped him. Betty had documented everything. Jessica's strange behavior around Catherine's medication, her unusual interest in estate finances, her private meetings with Dr. Reynolds. The last entry, dated just 3 days before Betty's death, sent a chill down his spine. "Jessica found me checking the stables today. I think she knows I suspect. The medication she gave me for my high blood pressure tastes bitter. I've stopped taking it, but I fear it's too late. If anything happens to me, the truth is buried where Michael rests. God forgive us all for our silence." Cody closed the journal, a cold determination settling over him. Tonight, after 26 years, Michael Miller would finally be found. A sudden noise from downstairs startled him. Moving cautiously to the window, he saw Jessica's car pulling up the driveway. She emerged. Her movements hurried as she entered the house. Quickly, Cody slipped out of Betty's room, making his way to the kitchen and out the back door. From the shadows of the garden, he watched as lights came on in Jessica's quarters, then in the study. Minutes later, she emerged with a flashlight and a shovel, heading toward the old stables, heart pounding. He texted Nicole J back at estate, heading to stables with shovel. "Moving whatever's buried. Coming." The response came immediately. "On my way. Don't confront her alone. Wait for me." But as Jessica disappeared into the darkness, Cody knew there wasn't time to wait. Whatever evidence had lain buried for 26 years was about to disappear forever. Taking a deep breath, he followed the bobbing beam of her flashlight into the night. Rain began to fall as Nicole's car sped down the winding road toward Highland Estate, drops splattering against the windshield in an increasingly frantic rhythm that matched her heartbeat. She'd left Edward in the care of a sheriff's deputy with strict instructions that no one, especially not Jessica or Dr. Reynolds, was to administer any medication. Her phone buzzed with another text from Cody. "She's digging behind the north wall. Hurry." "I'm trying," she muttered, gripping the steering wheel tighter as she navigated a sharp curve. The headlights briefly illuminated a figure on the roadside. Frank Parker. Trudging through the rain with determination, Nicole slowed and rolled down her window. "Frank, what are you doing out here?" The old caretaker squinted against the rain. "Heading to Highland Estate," Sheriff called. "Said they want to speak with me tomorrow morning. Thought I'd walk over tonight. Be ready." "Get in." "Jessica's at the stables right now." Frank's eyes widened as he climbed into the passenger seat. "She's moving the body after all these years. She knows we're onto her," Nicole explained, accelerating once more. "All her careful plans are falling apart." Frank stared ahead grimly. "I should have spoken up 26 years ago. Maybe Catherine would still be alive. And Sarah, you couldn't have known what Jessica was capable of," Nicole assured him. "That's just it. I did know. I saw the way she looked at Edward, even when Catherine was alive, like she was entitled to him, to everything the Millers had." Frank shook his head. "Betty knew too. We talked about it. But who would believe the hired help over a trained nurse?" As they approached Highland Estate, Nicole killed the headlights and pulled onto a service road that circled behind the main property toward the old stables. The dilapidated structure loomed through the rain, its weathered boards silver gray in the moonlight. "Stay in the car," Nicole instructed, retrieving a flashlight from the glove compartment. Frank scoffed. "Not a chance. I've been waiting 26 years for this moment." They approached cautiously, the only sounds the pattering of rain on the rotted roof and the rhythmic scrape of a shovel from within. Nicole signaled for Frank to circle around to the back entrance while she approached the main doors, which stood slightly ajar. Through the gap, she could see Jessica illuminated by a battery-powered lantern, digging frantically in the earthen floor. Sweat mingled with rain on her face as she tossed aside shovelfuls of dirt. A sizable hole had already formed, revealing what looked like decayed fabric. Nicole's stomach tightened as she realized she was looking at the remnants of clothing still draped over human remains. She silently documented the scene with her phone's camera, then scanned the interior for Cody. He was nowhere in sight. Just as she was about to enter, Jessica stopped digging. "I know you're there," she called without turning around. "You always were too curious for your own good." Nicole froze, uncertain if Jessica was addressing her. 26 years I've protected this secret," Jessica continued, still facing the hole. "And now you think you can just expose everything, claim what isn't yours." A movement in the shadows to Jessica's left revealed Cody, partially concealed behind a rotting support beam. Jessica had been speaking to him, not Nicole. "It wasn't yours to take either," Cody replied, stepping forward. "Highland Estate, Edward's affection, none of it belonged to you." Jessica laughed bitterly. "I earned it, year after year of service, devotion, protection. What did Michael do to deserve his birthright? Or you?" She gestured contemptuously at the hole. "He was weak, just like his mother, ready to throw away generations of Miller legacy for a summer romance. He was going to be a father," Cody said, his voice tight with emotion. "He was taking responsibility." "Responsibility," Jessica spat. "He was abandoning his duty to the estate, to his family name." She raised the shovel slightly. "I tried to reason with him that night, told him to end things with the Thompson girl, return home where he belonged. He laughed at me, said I was pathetic, pining after his father all those years." Nicole eased the door open wider, stepping silently into the stables. Jessica was so focused on Cody she didn't notice. "So you killed him," Cody stated flatly. Jessica's grip tightened on the shovel. "It was an accident. One moment we were arguing, the next, the shovel was in my hands." He fell so quietly. Her voice took on a dreamlike quality. "I panicked at first, but then realized it was for the best. Edward would need me more than ever. The estate would finally have proper management. And Sarah, was she an accident too?" Jessica's expression hardened. "She was a complication. After Catherine, I thought all threats to my position were eliminated. Then I discovered Sarah had given birth to Michael's child. I couldn't allow another Miller heir to suddenly appear. So you tracked her down and poisoned her," Nicole said, making her presence known. Jessica whirled around, shovel raised defensively. "The prodigal niece. Of course you'd be here too." Her eyes darted between Nicole and Cody. "You're too late. Once I move these remains, there will be no evidence. Just the wild accusations of a disgruntled gardener and an absent family member against a devoted caretaker of 26 years. It's over." "Jessica," Nicole said calmly, stepping closer, "the sheriff has your financial records. The hospital confirmed aconitine poisoning. Frank Parker is giving his statement about the night Michael disappeared." As if on cue, Frank appeared in the back doorway. "Hello, Jessica. Been a long time." Jessica's composure cracked. "You," she hissed. "I should have dealt with you years ago, just like Betty." "Betty left evidence too," Cody added, holding up the worn journal. "She documented everything. Her suspicions about Catherine's illness, Sarah's death, even her own poisoning." Jessica's eyes narrowed calculatingly. "Evidence that will never make it to the authorities." In one swift motion, she reached into her pocket and withdrew a small revolver. "This is regrettable, but necessary. Another tragic accident at Highland Estate. 3 intruders, shot while trespassing. Poor Edward, losing the last of his family in one night." "Edward knows everything," Nicole said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the gun aimed at her chest. "Killing us won't change that. Edward is a sick old man with dementia," Jessica countered. "His testimony won't stand against mine, especially after his beloved niece and her newfound friend are revealed to have been conspiring to steal his fortune." "That's your plan," Frank scoffed. "Murder all 3 of us and claim self-defense." Jessica smiled coldly. "It worked once before." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "Goodbye, Cody. You're as much trouble as your father was." Time seemed to slow as the gun swung toward Cody. Nicole lunged forward instinctively, shouting a warning. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, echoing off the rotted timbers. Pain exploded in Nicole's shoulder as the bullet found her instead of its intended target. She staggered backward, dimly aware of Cody shouting her name. Through a haze of shock, She saw Frank tackle Jessica from behind, the gun skittering across the dirt floor. Cody was at her side instantly, pressing his jacket against the wound. "Nicole, stay with me." "I'm okay," she managed, though the spreading warmth beneath his makeshift compress suggested otherwise. "Get the gun." Jessica and Frank struggled on the ground, the older man's strength surprising as he pinned her arms. "You ruined everything!" she screamed, her composure completely shattered. "The estate was supposed to be mine. Edward was supposed to be mine." Cody carefully leaned Nicole against a post and moved toward the gun. Jessica, seeing his intention, renewed her struggle against Frank with manic strength, freeing one arm to claw at his face. The old caretaker yelled in pain as her nails raked across his eye. In the moment of distraction, Jessica broke free, scrambling toward the gun. Cody reached it first, backing away with the weapon raised. Jessica froze, then slowly smiled. "You won't shoot me," she said with chilling confidence. "You're not a killer." "No," came a new voice from the doorway. "But I am." Jessica turned to find Edward Miller standing in the entrance, pale but steady. Another revolver, an antique from his study, pointed directly at her. "Edward," she breathed, "you don't understand. I did everything for you, for us." "You killed my son," Edward replied, his voice breaking. "Poisoned my wife, destroyed my family." Jessica's face contorted with rage. They were weak, unworthy. I was the only one who truly cared for Highland Estate, who understood its legacy. Highland Estate was never about land or legacy, Edward said softly. It was about family, something you could never understand. As if punctuating his words, sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer by the second. Jessica's eyes darted wildly between the three people and the gun in Edward's hand. With a cry of desperation, she lunged toward him, the ancient revolver discharged with a thunderous crack, the recoil nearly knocking Edward off his feet. Jessica stumbled, a look of shocked betrayal on her face as she pressed her hand against the spreading red stain on her abdomen. She turned toward the hole she dug, toward Michael's remains, and crumpled beside them, the killer falling alongside her victim after 26 years. The hospital corridor was a blur of activity, sheriff's deputies taking statements, medical personnel rushing between rooms, and the occasional flash of a crime scene photographer documenting evidence. Nicole sat on an examination table, wincing as a doctor finished bandaging her shoulder. "You're lucky," the doctor remarked, securing the final piece of tape. "The bullet went straight through, missed anything vital. A few weeks of physical therapy, and you'll barely notice it happened." Nicole nodded absently, her thoughts elsewhere. "My mother and uncle. Your uncle is stable. The shot he fired took a lot out of him, but physically he's recovering well." The doctor's expression softened. "Your mother's case is more complex. The toxin had been building in her system for weeks. We've started treatment. But," he left the sentence unfinished. "But it might be too late," Nicole finished for him. "Let's focus on one day at a time," he replied diplomatically. "The sheriff is waiting to speak with you when you're ready." After he left, Nicole carefully pulled on a clean shirt that a nurse had provided. Her blood-stained blouse had been taken as evidence, along with the bullet removed from her shoulder. It all felt surreal. The gunshot, Jessica's confession, Edward appearing like an avenging angel at the stable door. A soft knock preceded Sheriff Wilson's entrance. The woman was in her 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, and the weathered face of someone who'd seen the worst of human behavior. "Ms. Miller, how are you feeling?" "Like I've been shot," Nicole replied with a weak smile. The sheriff nodded, pulling up a chair. "I've got statements from your uncle and Mr. Parker. I need yours to complete the picture." For the next 20 minutes, Nicole recounted everything, finding Catherine's diary, discovering the aconitine poisoning, the secrets in Michael's room, and finally, the confrontation at the stables. The sheriff took notes, occasionally asking for clarification, but otherwise listening silently. "Jessica Harper is in surgery," she said when Nicole finished. "The doctors aren't optimistic. Your uncle's shot punctured her liver. And if she survives, she'll face multiple charges: first-degree murder for Michael Miller, second-degree murder or manslaughter for Catherine Miller and Sarah Thompson, attempted murder for you, your mother, and your uncle." Sheriff Wilson closed her notebook. "Plus fraud, poisoning, and likely more as we dig deeper." "What about my uncle?" "He shot her. Self-defense. She was armed and had already shot you. No jury would convict him. The sheriff stood. We've recovered the remains from the stable. The medical examiner will confirm identity, but the medallion found with the body strongly suggests it's Michael Miller. Nicole nodded, throat tight. His son should know. Cody Davis. Yes, we'll need his statement too. The sheriff paused. There's something else you should know. The lab work on your mother's blood samples showed recent exposure to a much higher concentration of aconitine than we found in your uncle's system. Nicole's stomach dropped. Jessica was accelerating the poisoning. Looks that way. With everything falling apart, she was tying up loose ends. Sheriff Wilson's expression was grim. I've stationed a deputy outside your mother's room, just in case Jessica has accomplices we don't know about yet. After the sheriff left, Nicole made her way to her mother's room. Amanda lay motionless, connected to various machines monitoring her vital signs. The steady beep of the heart monitor provided small comfort. She was alive, but for how long? Nicole sat beside the bed, taking her mother's cold hand. You were right, Mom. About everything. We found Michael. We stopped Jessica. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Now you just need to wake up so we can go home. All of us together. A gentle clearing of throat announced Cody's presence. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, a disposable cup of coffee in each hand. Thought you might need this, he said, offering one to Nicole. Thanks. She accepted gratefully, the warmth seeping through her fingers. Have you seen Edward? Cody nodded, taking the seat opposite her. They're discharging him tomorrow. The doctor says being off Jessica's medication for the past few days has already improved his condition dramatically. They sat in companionable silence, the rhythmic beeping of Amanda's monitors the only sound. Finally, Nicole spoke. What happens now? With you and Edward, I mean. Cody stared into his coffee. I don't know. For so long, my goal was exposing Jessica. I never really thought beyond that. You're his grandson, his only living descendant. By blood, yes, but I'm a stranger to him. Cody hesitated. And there's more. The truth I couldn't tell either of you before. He took a deep breath. Jessica was partly right about one thing. Michael and Sarah did plan to run away together, but they weren't just running from Edward's disapproval. They were running from Jessica. Nicole leaned forward. What do you mean? The night Michael disappeared, he wasn't meeting Sarah at Spencer Creek Bridge. He was confronting Jessica at the stables. Cody's voice dropped. According to Sarah's diary, which Betty kept all these years, Michael had discovered that Jessica was slowly poisoning Catherine. He had evidence, samples of medication, notes of Catherine's symptoms. He threatened to expose her if she didn't leave Highland Estate forever. And instead, she killed him. Nicole's hand tightened around her cup. Does Edward know this part? Cody shook his head. Not yet. I wanted to wait until he was stronger. He deserves the whole truth, no matter how painful. I know. Cody finished his coffee, crushing the cup slightly. There's more. The medallion. I didn't find it among Sarah's possessions as I implied. Betty recovered it from Michael's body the night he was killed. Nicole stared at him in shock. Betty knew all along where Michael was buried. She witnessed Jessica bury him, Cody confirmed. She was too afraid to come forward directly. Jessica had already threatened her. Instead, she took the medallion as evidence and spent years building a case against Jessica, gathering small pieces of proof. His expression darkened. When she finally felt ready to approach the authorities, she started experiencing symptoms. Jessica had poisoned her too. That's why Betty sent you, her last hope for justice. Cody nodded. She gave me the medallion, told me to get close to Edward, and find a way to expose Jessica without putting myself in danger. A bitter smile crossed his face. I failed at the last part, but succeeded at everything else, Nicole pointed out. Michael will get a proper burial, Jessica will face justice, one way or another, and Edward has found his grandson. Before Cody could respond, a nurse appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Miller, we need to draw blood for your mother's medication adjustment, and your uncle is asking for both of you. They found Edward in his room, sitting up in bed, looking remarkably improved. The confusion that had clouded his eyes for days had cleared, replaced by a sharp lucidity tinged with grief. The sheriff told me they found Michael, he said without preamble. After all these years, Nicole took his hand. Yes, they're still confirming. They're still. But the medallion was with him. Edward nodded slowly. I need to see him, to say goodbye properly. Uncle Edward, there's something you should know, Nicole began, glancing at Cody, about why Michael was at the stables that night, as Cody carefully explained what they had learned from Betty's records and Sarah's diary. Edward's expression shifted from grief to horror to something approaching pride. He was trying to protect his mother, Edward whispered. All these years, I thought he'd run away, abandoned us, but he was fighting for our family, just like his son has been doing, Nicole said softly. Edward turned to Cody, truly seeing him for the first time. You have his courage and Catherine's eyes. He reached for Cody's hand. I've lost too many years with my family already. I don't want to lose any more. A nurse appeared with a small kit. Mr. Miller, we need to run one more blood test before tomorrow's discharge. Edward nodded absently, still looking at Cody. Take whatever you need. As the nurse prepared the needle, she glanced between Edward and Cody. You know, we could do a quick compatibility test while we're at it, just in case you ever needed to donate blood to each other. With family, it's always good to know. Yes, Edward said firmly. Let's do that. Later, as twilight settled over the hospital, the nurse returned with the results. It's as we suspected, she said, handing Edward the paperwork. You're a perfect match for blood donation. The genetic markers confirm a direct familial relationship, grandfather to grandson, after she left. Edward stared at the paper, tears gathering in his eyes. Blood of my blood, he whispered. Proof at last. Cody stood awkwardly by the window. I should have told you everything from the beginning. No, Edward replied, looking up. You did what you had to do, what Betty taught you to do. He extended his hand. Welcome home, grandson. As Cody moved to take Edward's hand, an alarm suddenly blared from down the hall. Nicole recognized the code, a patient in distress. In the same instant, she realized it was coming from her mother's room. All three of them rushed toward the commotion, arriving to find medical staff performing CPR on Amanda's still form. What happened? Nicole demanded, trying to push past a nurse who blocked the doorway. Her heart stopped, the nurse explained, guiding her back. The doctor is doing everything possible. For what seemed like hours but was only minutes, they waited in agony as the medical team fought to revive Amanda. Finally, the doctor emerged, his face grave. We've stabilized her for now, he said, but her system is shutting down. The poison damaged her heart significantly. I'm sorry, but you should prepare yourselves. It's unlikely she'll survive the night. 3 months later, Highland Estate basked in the golden light of early autumn. The main house gleamed with fresh paint. Windows sparkled in the sunshine, and the gardens bloomed with renewed vigor. Most striking was the new Rosiral, a circular garden of carefully selected roses surrounding a simple granite marker inscribed with Michael Miller's name, birth date, and the words, Beloved Son. Father, forever missed. Edward stood beside the marker, leaning slightly on a polished oak cane as he surveyed the garden. At 67, he looked older than his years, the ordeal with Jessica having left permanent marks. Yet there was an undeniable vitality in his eyes that had been missing for decades. The spark of a man who had found his purpose again. Michael would have loved this, he said as Nicole joined him. He always had a way with plants, even as a boy. Like father, like son, Nicole replied, glancing across the garden where Cody knelt, carefully tending to a young rosebush. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Edward smiled, following her gaze. No, it doesn't, though sometimes it rolls quite a distance before taking root. He placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. How are you feeling? That shoulder still giving you trouble? Nicole rotated her arm experimentally. Only when it rains. The physical therapist says I'm ahead of schedule. Good. And your mother? A shadow crossed Nicole's face. Amanda's survival had been deemed miraculous by the medical staff. After that terrifying night when her heart stopped, she had clung tenaciously to life, slowly fighting back from the brink. Now, she occupied a suite on the ground floor of Highland Estate. Her recovery measured in small daily victories. Better every day, Nicole reported. This morning she walked all the way to the kitchen and back without the walker. Dr. Patel says her test results show significant improvement. Edward nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. Miller women are fighters. Catherine would be proud of both of you. They watched as Cody finished his work and approached, wiping soil from his hands. Gone was the cautious, secretive young man who had arrived at Highland Estate 8 months ago. In his place stood the rightful heir to the Miller legacy, though he still preferred working in the gardens to sitting behind a desk. "The Abraham Darby roses are thriving," he reported. "Another month and they'll be established enough for the winter." Edward gestured toward the main house. "Come inside, both of you. The sheriff called earlier. There's news." In Edward's study, the changes were subtle but significant. Catherine's photograph now sat prominently on the desk alongside one of Michael as a teenager. New additions included a family portrait from the 1990s, showing Edward, Catherine, Michael, and a young Nicole during a summer visit, and a recent photo of Edward with Cody in the garden. "Jessica Harper died this morning," Edward announced without preamble once they were seated. "She never regained consciousness after the surgery." Nicole exhaled slowly. "I can't say I'm sorry." "Nor I," Edward agreed, "though I do regret firing that shot, not because she didn't deserve it, but because taking a life, any life, leaves a mark on one's soul. The sheriff ruled it self-defense," Cody reminded him. "She had already shot Nicole and was threatening all of us." Edward waved a dismissive hand. "The legal ruling doesn't change the moral weight." He opened a desk drawer and withdrew a thick envelope. "Jessica's personal effects were released to me as her former employer. Among them was this." He pushed the envelope across the desk. Inside was a small leather-bound book, Jessica's diary. Its pages contained a meticulous record of her crimes. Thoughts and plans spanning nearly 3 decades. She documented everything, Edward said quietly. Michael's murder, Catherine's poisoning, her search for Sarah and subsequent killing of her, Betty's accidental death, even her plans for Amanda and, eventually, me. He pointed to a hand-drawn map tucked between the pages. She even marked locations around the property where she buried evidence. Syringes, medication bottles, even items stolen from the house that she used to frame others. Cody studied the map, his expression grim. All this time, the evidence was right here on the grounds. She never expected anyone to search, Nicole observed. Her arrogance was her ultimate downfall. Indeed. Edward reclaimed the diary, returning it to the drawer. The sheriff considers the case closed. Michael's remains will be released for proper burial next week. He looked up at Cody. "I'd like to enter him officially in the family plot, with Catherine." "He would want that," Cody agreed softly. A companionable silence fell over the room, broken only by the distant sounds of Amanda's physical therapist guiding her through exercises in the sunroom. Finally, Edward cleared his throat. "I've been putting my affairs in order," he announced. "Part of that process involves formally acknowledging Cody as my grandson and heir." Nicole smiled. "That's wonderful, Uncle Edward. There's more." Edward shifted his gaze to Cody. "I want you to take over management of Highland Estate, not just the gardens, but everything. The finances, the business operations, the legacy." Cody looked startled. "I'm not prepared for that. I don't have the education or experience." "You'll learn," Edward interrupted. "Just as Michael would have. Highland Estate was always meant to pass to my son, and now to his son after him." His expression softened. "Unless you don't want it, I would understand if you preferred a different path." "It's not that," Cody said quickly. "Highland Estate has been part of me my entire life. Even when I was far from here, it's just a tremendous responsibility, which is why you won't face it alone." Edward turned to Nicole. "I've spoken with your supervisor at the county lab. They're willing to hold your position for another 6 months, while you help Cody learn the ropes here if you're willing." "Of course." Nicole felt a flutter of surprise, followed by something warmer, a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. "I'd like that," she said simply. Edward beamed. "Excellent now. There's one more matter to discuss." He fixed them both with a knowing look. "I may be old, but I'm not blind. I've seen how you two look at each other when you think no one is watching." Nicole felt heat rush to her cheeks as Cody suddenly found the carpet extremely interesting. "Uncle Edward," she began. "Let me finish," he said gently. "You're technically first cousins once removed. Legally, there's no impediment to your relationship in this state. More importantly, you're both adults who found each other under extraordinary circumstances. We haven't really discussed." Cody gestured vaguely between himself and Nicole. "Well, perhaps you should." Edward suggested with a hint of mischief. Life is too short to waste on hesitation. Catherine and I nearly missed our chance because of family expectations. I won't see the same happen to you. Before either could respond, Amanda appeared in the doorway, leaning on her walker but standing straighter than she had in weeks. "Are you giving romantic advice, Edward?" she asked, amusement coloring her voice. "Because your own track record is hardly exemplary," Edward laughed, the sound youthful and carefree. "Perhaps not, but I did get one thing right. I married for love, despite my parents' objections. Best decision I ever made." Amanda made her way to an empty chair, settling into it with a satisfied sigh. "Nicole, help me to the garden later. I want to see the new roses." "Of course." "Mom," Amanda's gaze shifted to Cody. "And you, young man, Betty would be proud of you. She always said you had Miller determination." "Thank you, Mrs. Miller," Cody replied softly. "That means a great deal." The conversation drifted to more mundane matters. Plans for dinner, updates on the estate renovations, a discussion of which roses might be added to the garden next spring. Through it all, Nicole felt a profound sense of peace. The nightmare that had haunted Highland Estate for decades had finally ended. In its place, a new family was taking root, bound by blood, choice, and shared healing. Later, as the sun began to set, Nicole and Cody stood alone in the rose garden beside Michael's memorial. The first star appeared in the darkening sky, a silent witness to the moment. "Your grandfather is quite the matchmaker," Nicole observed, breaking the comfortable silence. Cody smiled. "Is it working?" Instead of answering, Nicole reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "What happens next, Cody Miller?" He looked startled at the surname, then thoughtful. "I haven't decided if I'll take the Miller name yet." "You should. It's your birthright." She squeezed his hand. "Besides, it suits you." As twilight deepened around them, a soft breeze carried the scent of roses through the garden. Among the carefully tended bushes, a single red bloom opened its petals to the night, the first flower on the bush planted directly over where Michael had rested for 26 years. Its vibrant color seemed to glow in the gathering darkness, a promise of renewal, of life persisting. Despite all odds, Edward watched from the terrace. Amanda beside him, neither spoke, as their niece and grandson lingered in the garden, two silhouettes gradually becoming one as the distance between them disappeared. "Life finds a way," Amanda murmured finally,